Good morning, everyone. Paul Rupel here with Fox 29 News Now. Hope your Thursday's off to a good start. It's a little bit chilly out there, and we are keeping an eye on some winter weather moving our way tonight. Let's take a look at Ultimate Doppler, looking at the continental U.S. here. You see Storm 1, which will be impacting us this evening, and then followed by Storm 2, which will be causing some problems for us from from Saturday through Monday. We're going to have a second blast of wintry weather, perhaps more significant than the first. Certainly more moisture with that second system from the report from what our weather authority team's been telling us. And then there's going to be a cold blast on the back side of that. We'll get you your forecast in a little bit. Hopefully have Sue Serio possibly stop by with us and talk with us a little bit about the weather if she's available. I know she's very busy getting the forecasts and keeping tabs on how things are coming in, the latest models and information. Let's take a quick look right now, though, at the forecast for this storm, the first storm. Let me pull that up here. There you see it moving into the area Thursday night. Sue's been saying about 8 to 11 o'clock it moves in, so there you go, there's midnight. See snow mostly overspreading the area. As you move it a little bit into the wee hours of the morning, Friday, 3 a.m., that's a significant amount of rain over South Jersey. See where that mix line is setting up, right over 95 at 3 o'clock in the morning, just about 95 there. And so we'll be seeing where the snow's going to fall, where it's going to mix with some sleet and mixed precipitation and some rain. As you move into the morning, that line could push into the northwest suburbs of Philadelphia, the western and northern suburbs. And then it's mostly out by the end of the rush hour. But as I mentioned, there's going to be more on the way Saturday through Monday. Here's a live look outside our studios at this moment. 29 degrees out there, dew point at 10. Winds out of the north at 10 miles an hour. So we'll have more on the weather forecast and how it's going to impact our area. As I mentioned, this is double trouble with two snowstorms coming to our area. The first one's just a few hours away starting tonight. PennDOT is getting ready to salt the roads. How are people in our area preparing for snow, freezing rain, and bitter cold temperatures? Fox 29 Sabina Kuriakos has that report. She was in Montgomery County this morning. I believe that's where she followed this particular video, and we'll take her report now.
And we are here in Gladwin, right off the Schuylkill. You can see traffic is flying by because we're not seeing the storm just yet. It's not hitting until late tonight. But look at where we are. We're actually standing right off the roadway at one of PennDOT's salt silos where they have just tons and tons of rock salt ready to be thrown onto the roads once the storms actually come down. Because as we go to video, we can see overnight actually PennDOT crews were out and about, but they were brining the roads. They're not quite using the actual solid salt yet. They're brining, so they're using that mixture of salt and water to kind of prep the roads, get them ready to go so that when the snow and the rain and the ice, which we know we're going to see during that flash freeze on Sunday, once that actually hits the ground, hopefully it's not going to freeze because of the brining. And then eventually the crews you see there going around early this morning, rather, putting that down. Eventually, once the precipitation does start to come down, they're going to have to put all of this salt back out here that we're seeing in the shed. Then we're going to see a lot of activity out here. You're going to see the trucks coming in and out, pushing out all of that salt, putting it on the dump trucks and the plows to have it all out on the roadway. Right now it's a little bit quiet, but of course we know those back-to-back storms, they're going to hit starting late tonight, and then of course that's just round one, but round two of course is going to be the hard stuff, the big stuff that's coming Saturday night. So you can bet PennDOT, all these crews are going to be ramping up throughout the day today into tomorrow, and of course Saturday, Sunday, really the whole long weekend as well. So we're in Gladwin. Sabina Correa Coast, Fox 29 News right now. Back to you.
That was Sabina reporting from Gladwin. You're looking live at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway, Philadelphia Art Museum in the background. City prepares for wintry weather. We haven't had much since November, I think, was the last, kind of significant impact of wintry weather. We had a little bit of snow last weekend, so yeah, it did have a little bit of snow. But the last one that impacted, I believe the one in November was a bigger event from my recollection. Let's get you a few other stories here. One is a major kickback scheme in Delaware County. Police arrested 41 people who they say stole nearly $1 million from a local nonprofit. The organization with the lost funds provides care for children and adults with special needs and health challenges. But back in May of 2017, the organization told police about an internal investigation where they discovered 4 supervisors were approving manipulated timesheets, paying workers for overtime they didn't work. Employees would then pay kickbacks to the supervisors.
For the individuals who actually committed this offense are supervisors. We hold supervisors to a higher standard of conduct, including setting an example for their colleagues. Instead of helping others, which was their mission, they did the exact opposite. They lined their pockets with money. They received gifts, such as an older model BMW, and every single pay period, they got a kickback.
Those 41 people are now facing charges of theft, theft by deception, and conspiracy. Here is queuing up our next story. Oh, here it is. That's right. It's a map for you. A man was shot in the face after being robbed of $20. It happened just after 8:30 last night on the 2800 block of North 22nd Street. A 61-year-old man was walking along the street when 5 men came up to him. One was holding a gun. After taking the cash, four men ran away, but one stayed behind, shooting the victim. Surveillance cameras recorded the whole thing. Here's Philadelphia Police Chief Inspector Scott Small talking about what happened.
5 males approached the victim. The victim put his hands up. One male went through his pockets, and after taking something from his pockets, they all began to walk away. And for some reason, the male with the gun just fired a shot from point-blank range into the victim's face. The victim was not putting up a fight. The victim was not resisting. He was just standing there.
The man was rushed to Temple University Hospital, where he is currently in stable condition. Police are searching for those 5 men. In Gloucester County, Franklin Township Police are searching for a woman and 3 men who carried out a violent home invasion. A man who lives on New York Avenue, I believe we have video for this story, there we go. A man who lives on New York Avenue says a woman came to his front door asking to use his phone Sunday night, but when he said he didn't have a phone, 3 masked men forced their way inside along with the woman.
Only have a 9. He put a 9 behind. To me, he says, you don't give the money, I'm going.
The victim says the suspects threatened to stab him, so he gave them what money he had. They also took his cell phone and ran off. He was able to go to a neighbor's house to call 911. Police say they're not sure whether the home invasion was random or if the victim was targeted. Hundreds of people, including family and fellow police officers, came together last night to pray for an officer recovering after a motorcycle accident. Philadelphia police officer Andy Chan is still in critical condition. Officer Chan was hit while riding his highway patrol motorcycle into work 2 weeks ago. A prayer vigil was held at St. Matthew's Catholic Church last night.
Lift your hearts up in prayer for our brothers and sisters in blue.
Here's a little bit of sound.
He's progressing, so he's on a road to recovery right now, and we need all the prayers.
Chan's family says he is under great care with a severe head injury. His family hopes that someday Officer Chan will be back in uniform. Certainly wish him the best with his recovery. Want to let you know, as we take another live look at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway, that we do expect to carry at 11 a.m. a news conference. This will be Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney announcing a violence prevention and reduction plan. The mayor is announcing the plan that he hopes will dramatically decrease the number of killings and shootings in Philadelphia. This press conference will be held with the Deputy Managing Director for Criminal Justice and Public Safety, and as well as Violence Prevention Strategies and Programs Senior Director. It's going to be coming to us from City Hall, so we'll bring that to you at 11 a.m. We also will carry this when it comes. We understand President Trump will be participating in the Missile Defense Review announcement. I believe this wasn't expected to occur before 11, but we've got a shot up early. So if the president speaks early or when he does, we'll try to bring that to you as well. Here's a look at the stock market at this moment. Currently down slightly, about 36 points. The Dow Jones Industrial Average at 24,170 right now. Let's get you a look at business. Here is Tracy Carrasco from the Fox Business Network. Microsoft taking on homelessness, and if you're looking for a job, don't expect to find one. Be finding one at Apple. Here's Tracy Carrasco's report. She has your morning business outlook.
Stocks rising for a second straight day on Wall Street. The Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ all closing higher with a strong start to earnings season helping to fuel the rally. Apple will cut back on hiring for some divisions after lower than expected iPhone sales and missing its revenue forecast for the holiday quarter, according to a report by Bloomberg. CEO Tim Cook reportedly made the disclosure to employees earlier this month in a meeting the day after he wrote a letter to investors about the company's recent struggles, particularly in China. Microsoft announced it's pledging up to $500 million to address homelessness and help build affordable housing in the Seattle area, which has seen skyrocketing real estate prices as tech companies have moved into the city. Microsoft said it would work to open up housing options for low and middle income workers almost immediately, with plans to invest the money within the next 3 years. This is the largest pledge in Microsoft's history. For more, log on to foxbusiness.com. In New York, I'm Tracy Carrasco.
And there's a look at the market again for you. About 38 points down, 37. Not too bad of a morning so far. I believe the market was up about 120, 140 points yesterday, so a little less volatility than we've had of late. As we take another look at the Pentagon there, where the president, I believe that's Pentagon, where the president's going to be speaking or taking part in an event. Yesterday, the State of the Union address may be the latest casualty in the partial government shutdown saga. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is calling for the State of the Union to be postponed. Fox News correspondent Doug Luzader has more from Capitol Hill this morning.
Well, the State of the Union address, what is that? I think it's January 29th. I don't remember that because it's Fox 29. We may not be able to see it. Maybe a casualty of the government shutdown, but we have time.
And this is because Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is calling for the State of the Union to be postponed in light of the fact that the government has been shut down.
Or do it in some other location.
Or I guess he could just leave the handout, the written version of it.
Yeah, every year they write it out, don't they, Doug?
They do. I mean, that's what the Constitution really requires. That's the only requirement. So we'll see what the president decides to do here. This is, you know, as far as I can tell, really without precedent. You have this invitation and then kind of a disinvitation. The State of the Union address may not happen as we thought after all.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
It's become a bedrock of American politics, the State of the Union address, but not so fast. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi says the speech shouldn't happen, at least not as scheduled. In a letter to the president, she writes, the U.S. Secret Service and Department of Homeland Security have not been funded for 26 days now, with critical departments hamstrung by furloughs. The number 2 Democrat in the House explained,
what she suggests is a real security problem unless we've opened up the government.
But hold up, says the Secretary of Homeland Security, who oversees the Secret Service. The Department of Homeland Security, she writes, and the U.S. Secret Service are fully prepared to support and secure the State of the Union.
This latest stunt, and it's not even a stunt, this is unprecedented.
Some Republicans are incensed, and in many ways, this speech standoff mirrors the shutdown debate. Both sides are digging in and don't look for the Speaker of the House to change her mind.
I think it might not happen because she's kind of taken this position where she can't really back down by saying, okay, it's fine, I invite you.
The Constitution requires it, so it will happen one way or another. Whether it happens in person is still to be seen.
And that's the thing, like we were just talking about. The Constitution does require it, but it's just a really written kind of report. And for years, that's all we had in this country. The State of the Union address, as we know it, is a relatively modern thing. So the president has a lot of latitude here. I mean, he could, if he wanted to, go to Pennsylvania and have a big MAGA rally. You know, he could do it. He could do it from the Oval Office. He could do it from the Senate chambers.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of options here. We just don't know what the president's going to do.
Philadelphia, birthplace of America.
That would be a place
There
to
you go, right out in front of Independence Hall, but it would be freezing.
But when it comes to the Secret Service, when they say they're fully staffed at Homeland Security and able to support this, so they are staffed, they're just not being paid, right?
That's right. They're staffed and not being paid. And, you know, listen, it's a complicated thing pulling off security for the State of the Union, but it is something that they do just about every year. So there's a certain routine
right. I mean, it's one of
our
more dangerous events because everybody in government is there except for one person that he's sticking a vault.
And is Nancy Pelosi, can she alone, because we know her stance on this, can she pull the plug on it?
Yeah, it's her house. I mean, it's her sandbox. And the way this always happens is it's an invitation from the Speaker of the House to the President. She did give the invitation, and now she's saying maybe not a good idea.
I think we should blame Woodrow Wilson. I think it was he who first decided, well, you should do this in public. I think.
Well, interestingly enough, he started it up again. Washington and Adams both delivered in-person State of the Union address, States of the Union, and then Jefferson stopped it. Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of unprecedented, George Washington's. Nobody had ever done it. Check out the. Well, it's kind of boring. 7:15.
Closing arguments are expected this morning in the murder trial of a Temple University student. Yesterday, the defense called suspect Joshua Huperter's mother, younger brother, and best friend to the stand. The last witness for the prosecution was the victim's father, who testified about seeing his daughter Jenna just hours before her death. Jeff Cole, Fox 29's Jeff Cole, has been in the courtroom every day. He joined Good Day Philadelphia this morning along with attorney Kristen Gibbons-Fedden to talk about the case, and here is that discussion.
All right, here we go. This story's been getting some national attention. Jurors are expected to get the case later today in the murder of Temple University student Jenna Burley. Jeff Cole has been in the courtroom every day. Here's his report.
Ed Burley Burley took the stand Wednesday as the prosecution's last witness, while a picture of his final goodbye with his slain daughter appeared on a courtroom screen. His daughter had a fender bender, and he'd come to help her. A camera captured them saying goodbye. Hours later, she was dead. He spoke of his testimony.
I did it on behalf of, in the memory of Jenna, that's all. It's emotional, very emotional.
Earlier, jurors watched some of the last moments of Jenna Burley's life as prosecutors displayed video of her in the bar with accused killer Joshua Hupaterts, leaving it at 2 a.m. and going into her alleged killer's apartment after that. Hupaterts is later seen hauling a heavy blue bin with his cousin from the apartment into a car. Prosecutors say Burley's body was inside. They allege Hupaterts strangled Burley in his North Philly apartment after she cut short sex with him. He's admitted to moving the body to the Poconos to hide it, but claims his ex-roommate, Jack Miley, is the killer. Miley, in the apartment at the time of the killing, testified he heard nothing because he was sound asleep from heavy drinking and drugging. He's not charged.
So we have Jeff Cole here with us, with attorney Kristen Gibbons. Thank you so much.
So, sure. The jury's going to get it today?
Yeah, they should get it today. It's my understanding the judge instructed the jury would get it by 1 o'clock.
Yeah, what happened is, so the prosecution told the judge that they will need an hour and a half to make their close. So what happens is the attorneys have to close. Right? They make their final argument. Prosecution, hour and a half. They'll play video, their text. There's lots of, material here. And then the defense says it'll go an hour. Then the judge has to charge the jury. He has to speak to the jury about the law. Then they get the case. That should be 1 o'clock this afternoon.
So Joshua, the accused, did not take the stand.
No, he did not take the stand.
And what is the rule? You're an attorney. How do you make that decision?
Well, as you know, the defendant has a right to remain silent. He has a Fifth Amendment right, and the judge, when he gives the instructions, will tell the jury that they cannot make any adverse inference based on his decision not to take the stand. They can't say, oh, well, he's got to be guilty because he didn't take the stand. So when a defendant decides not to take the stand, it's a very important decision. But what it allows them to do is put the prosecution at its proof. The prosecution is the only one with the burden to prove this case. The defendant doesn't need to prove that they're innocent.
Right.
The prosecution has to. So when the defendant gets on the stand,
What was interesting yesterday is reporters covering this thing, we wanted him to take the stand.
Sure.
We wanted to see it. And there was a hint that he would. Because at one point, the judge says to the defense attorney, David Nenner, is your client? Is your client going to take the stand? I haven't quite decided that yet. We didn't think he would, but there was sort of an open window where maybe he would. And then, of course, the judge actually, questions Hupaterts about this. And he said that he is making the decision not to take the stand.
But the roommate did take the stand.
The roommate did take the stand, and the prosecution led him along, and he was crossed very aggressively. The defense's claim is this, that guy was in the house.
The roommate.
And that when Burley, his name is Jack Miley, when Burley was screaming and yelling in the house, he comes upstairs and strangles her and then hauls her down the steps and stomps on her neck. That's how she's killed. That's what the defense has said. The ME has said that the injuries that are there and the evidence there does not support the claim that she was hauled down the stairs and stomped on.
And that's why, when you say the medical examiner, that's why there's no charges against the roommate.
He is not charged. He has
police
not been,
didn't believe that.
He has absolutely not been charged in the case. But the opening here is he consumed a lot of booze.
The roommate.
To his own admission, and took a Xanax that night.
He's
and
out.
So there's some argument that he was totally out.
Okay, so the dad wasn't there, but why was the dad take the stand? Is that for sympathy?
It's not for sympathy, but the dad was with the victim moments before she was murdered. Right? Not moments, but hours before.
Yeah.
They had dinner prior to, and then she said her last goodbyes to her father. So that's really important for the jury to understand the perspective and how things went down that night.
How they played out.
Yeah, how they played out.
I mean, the dad has sat in that courtroom. He has sat in the courtroom and seen a picture of his daughter in that blue bin. He has seen autopsy photos of his daughter after the killing. which are brutal. His wife has left the room during that. He has sat in there and watched it. They put him up yesterday, absolutely, to document that he had contact with her and why he had contact with her. And they put up a picture of her with his arm around her, kissing his daughter on the cheek goodbye.
On that
in
final
her
day.
first week at Temple University. That's what that was. And they put him up to talk about that, and he did.
Well, I know the jury's going to get it today. Could a decision be made today?
Sure.
Yeah.
Deliberations can take anywhere between, a couple of minutes to a couple of days.
You've seen a couple minutes in your experience? Or?
My quickest jury experience was 15 minutes.
15 minutes?
But it wasn't for a murder
Longest was
case,
5
though?
days. No, it was not for a homicide.
Tremendous amount of material here, folks. Remember, this is the modern day. So there is video of them. There is video of the accused and the victim in the bar. It's them coming out of the bar, walking down the street, going into her apartment. There is video of him taking that blue van with his cousin out of the apartment and putting it in the car. He has admitted to moving that body and taking it to his grandma's house in the Poconos, but says he did not kill her.
And the roommate, they put him on the stand. And did he just... what did he look like, the roommate? I mean,
he's a pretty solid guy. I mean, they pushed him hard on how much he drank. He was clearly aggressive towards Hupperterts. At one point, he said to the defense attorney, "You must not know Mr. Hupperterts very well." He also said on the stand that Hupperterts meets women in bars and lies to them all the time. Certainly it was aggressive. Obviously, he is angry that Hupperterts has put this on him, that this is what the argument is, and so he was up there. The judge yesterday, really quickly, said to the defense attorney, "Sir, there is no evidence, there's no DNA evidence that puts the roommate anywhere connected in any way around her." So folks have certainly seen it, but we will see what the jury says here.
Okay.
Certainly will.
Thank you both.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Great to see you.
Let's quick break. Come right back.
That was our Jeff Cole there, joining a local attorney to talk about the case. Jeff reports, as he said, that closing arguments are getting underway this morning, and the jury could have the case by 1 o'clock. So please stay with Fox 29 News at 5, 6, 10, and 11, and fox29.com. Make sure you sign up for notifications in the Fox 29 News app, and we'll get you any developments if there's a decision by the jurors today in that case. As I mentioned, we are awaiting, we could have remarks from President Trump at an event he's attending at the Pentagon. Also, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is expected to give her weekly news conference in Washington, D.C., so I believe that's scheduled for 10:45, so we'll try to get you to those events if we can. We're also going to be taking a deeper dive into the weather forecast. We'll get that for you in a little bit. For the moment, let's take you on a tour of the area so you can get a look at the conditions around the region. These are our weathermetrics cameras, and here we go. Hello again, everybody. As I mentioned earlier, we are keeping our eye on a double whammy of winter weather headed our way. You see the first part of that storm, a little bit below the Midwest there, coming out of the southeast a bit. You see the circle around that, storm number 1. That's the one that's going to be our weather maker tonight. Expect snow to start after dark. I believe Sue was saying between 8 and 11 p.m. tonight. And then storm number 2 out over the Pacific coast right now. That'll impact us over the weekend and into Monday. And then we'll get some bitterly cold air moving into the area. So brace yourself for some mighty chilly air and temperatures coming our way early next week. Take another live look at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway and current conditions. Ticked up a degree to get to 30, but not quite above the freezing mark yet. Still a couple degrees from there. Winds out of northeast, 8 miles per hour, calming down a little from earlier. The dew point is 10. Here's a look at Market Street East, heading from our studios at 4th and Market. See SEPTA buses going either way there. Weather could impact our travel tomorrow morning, so make sure you tune in to Good Day Philadelphia starting at 4 a.m. We'll be with you live local from 4 till 10 a.m., keeping you aware of the conditions at each moment of the morning. Bob Kelly with traffic, Sue Seria with the weather. Once again, we're waiting for President Trump is expected to appear at this event. He's supposed to be participating in the Missile Defense Review announcement. And we're hearing that we do expect him to make some remarks at this event. And on the other hand, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will be holding her weekly news conference at 10:45 a.m. That gets underway in about 10 minutes. There's a few more reports for you. I'm just waiting for them to come online, so I'll get them to you as soon as that happens. Check in and see. While we're waiting for that to happen, you can hear I'm a little bit congested, still battling a cough and cold that started over Christmas break. We'll take a look at some of the current conditions around the area for you. It's quiet on Ultimate Doppler right now. It won't be later tonight. Here are your current temperatures. As we mentioned, 30 in Philadelphia. Pretty close mostly around the region, 20s and 30s. Upper 20s, lower 30s. Only 19 in Mount Pocono. For the Northeast, you can see that bitterly cold air has moved into New England. Burlington, Vermont, 4 degrees. Bangor, Maine, 7 degrees. Only 16 in Rochester, New York, 16 in Toronto. That's a big swath of pink up there. And blues moving into our area. Not in Miami. 69 down there, 57 in Tampa, 61 in Houston, 58 in San Francisco, and 42 in Portland. Checking in on a website topic there. Have one of those reports I mentioned we would have. Modern day slavery. In 2018, 127 human trafficking cases were reported in Pennsylvania. See how a new documentary is shedding light on this despicable crime that could be happening in your neighborhood. Here is the report from Good Day Philadelphia this morning.
Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month and Awareness Month.
And it's not every day that we hear the words mentioned in the same breath, but the fact is human trafficking is considered a form of modern-day slavery, according to experts. In 2018, 127 human trafficking cases were reported in our state. This is in Pennsylvania. Nationally, more than 5,000 cases were reported.
Well, there's this new documentary I want you to see. It's shedding some light on this crime and problem that robs people of their innocence and so much more. It's called From Liberty to Captivity.
It's happening in your neighborhood. There is probably someone in your neighborhood that's being sold for sex on the internet right now.
This is a demand-driven business.
We have some young people who have been sold 20, 30, and 40 times in one night.
You can have a trafficked victim generating anywhere from $150,000 to $325,000 a year.
The person that was buying me was the doctor, the lawyer, the clergyman. Always, almost always a husband.
We would encourage them to get their friends to come on board with the lure of drugs, alcohol, and fast times.
So Debbie Wright is the producer of this documentary called From Liberty to Captivity, and it takes a closer look at sex trafficking in our state. I can't say that enough, because I think so many people think it's happening in other places. And she's here along with Dr. Ellen Jo Waller, who oversees an anti-human trafficking ministry at Enon Tabernacle called She's My Sister. Of course, you're a friend of the show. We know you and the great work that you do in our area. And then also Jane Guarino, a survivor of sex trafficking and the founder and president of Glory House.
We got to start with you, Jane. Can you go back to Allentown? I know you've told this story many times, and it's probably difficult to talk about, but it was Christmas Day. Allentown. Day. How old are you at that point?
I was 30.
30 years old. What happens to you? A guy pulls up.
A guy pulled up. I was already out on the street.
Working as a prostitute.
Yes, and I had an addiction, and he told me I didn't have to work that day. And he took me out to the hotel, gave me drugs, and then on the way back, all he did was sleep. And then on the way back, he said, you know, you don't have to live like this. I can help you. I can do things. You can have a designer clothes and get your hair done and your makeup done and everything else. And I said, yeah. And I said, what, and give my money to you? I don't think so. And he lifted his coat. And there was a gun in his pants, and he said, I'm not asking. That was it. I was gone.
So to the point where you were chained to a motel, to the bed or the wall?
Yeah, I was sold 4 times. First in New York, then in D.C., and we ended up in Los Angeles.
How'd you get out of it?
I escaped.
You ran.
I got off the drugs. And I didn't do drugs for 4 months, and I saved them all up. And there was 18 other girls in the same hotel. They were all 11 to 15 years old.
This is happening in the United States. It's happening in Pennsylvania. It's happening in Philadelphia.
I was the oldest, and then they unchained me. They were trying to make me a recruiter. They were grooming me.
Go out and get other girls.
Yes.
And part of the reason why we keep reiterating that this is happening in our state, Debbie, is because you were one of the people, like so many out there, who originally thought, no, this is happening in another country. There's no way it's happening, till you found out about your neighbor.
That's right. That's right. So just on a regular, sunny day, I went to go get the mail from my mailbox. And when I opened it up, there was an article that had been placed in my mailbox in an envelope that said FYI on the top of it. And it explained that one of my neighbors had been arrested for possession and distribution of child pornography, including a video of a baby. And as I was standing in the street, reading this article, I had this moment where I knew that I was at a crossroads and that I needed to make a decision. Was I going to ignore what was literally a couple houses away from me going on in terms of children being enslaved, or was I going to do something about it? And I just knew that I just couldn't ignore it. I felt compelled to do something.
Documentary, 5 years in the making?
5 years in the making,
What
yes.
has this done to you? I mean, are you shocked by what you learned?
I'm shocked by what I've learned in hearing stories like this, and also just understanding how epidemic it is. But on the other side, what surprised me is how incredibly inspired I became, because there are amazing people like Dr. Waller and Jane who are out there really doing incredible things to fight against this.
And Dr. Waller, what does this mean to you to see that now more people are kind of opening their eyes to the fact that this is going on right next door?
You've been talking about it for a long
I'm
time.
going to say a really long time. 2005 was the beginning of my research into the issue. And so as we've begun to meet great people like Debbie and wonderful survivors and finding ways to continue to tell people this is real. One of the things that we like to do is to hide our eyes from the issue and pretend like, no, it doesn't happen here. Like Mike was saying, in the United States, people think, oh, it happens overseas, it happens in third world countries, it happens right here. And Philadelphia is actually quite a hub. If you think about where you can be in 3 to 5 hours from Philadelphia,
You got it.
think about all of the highways we have here. But people are being victimized every day. And it is something that in this day and age, and it's 2019.
You've got to see this documentary. When can we see it?
We are touring throughout Pennsylvania, and we'll be expanding in 2019. So you can go to our website and look at upcoming screenings, dates for screenings. You can also book a screening of the film. This is part of our grassroots activism. Many of us were activists before we got involved with this.
In the documentary, do you touch on if we have somebody in our life where I think something's wrong here, like ways, warning signs that I need to step in and help somebody?
How do you know? Yeah, we definitely have experts and survivors who are telling their stories to help you understand kind of the pathway of how this happens and how traffickers operate. We also have the trafficking hotline in the film. There's information on our website so that you can find out exactly what the warning signs are, but also that you can, actually program the trafficking hotline number in your phone. So if you see something suspicious, that you will make that call.
Jane, thank you for what you're doing, because this takes courage to go in, and I know you've been talking about it for a while, but
and now you're helping others.
I'm helping women who are like I was. Yes, my house is for women out of exploitation. My program is amazing. We have very high success rate, which is almost unheard of. All we do is give them love.
That's what they need, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Certainly what they need.
And we're completely self-supporting. And if you can go to our website, and press the donate button. If everybody donates $1, we'll be fine.
Yeah, and we'll have all those places to go to on our website, fox29.com.
And also links to where you can see this powerful film.
And don't forget that God can help too.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Prayer changes things.
Yes, He does.
Yes. Thank you, ladies. We
Yes.
appreciate it. We're going to take a break.
Fox Tonight.
I'm going after Jeremiah.
Hello, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, we have a special guest. Sue Serio here is with us to talk about the weather a little bit. We're facing, Sue, two storms coming our way. I have them up on the screen here, Storm 1 and Storm 2.
Yeah, we sort of escaped any winter weather all December long. It seems like as soon as the new year hit, we got a storm last weekend, and now here come two more. And we may get another one middle of next week, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll do one storm at a time. So the first one is expected to arrive tonight.
All right. It's pretty quiet on Ultimate Doppler right now. Not much to see the last couple hours. Maybe it's a little bit of cloud cover starting to move in there, but not too much.
I think the clouds will take over probably around lunchtime. And that's in advance of the precipitation, which we do not expect to begin until well after dark. Depends on where you live, but looks like it'll be cold enough for snow for a lot of us. The temperatures right now, as you can see, many of them are below freezing. We had a weak cold front come through overnight. So, yeah, it's just a degree above freezing in Wildwood and Dover. But I think these temperatures will probably rise into the mid-30s before the afternoon is through, maybe by about 4 o'clock. Feels a little colder than it actually is. Wind chills throughout our region are mostly in the 20s right now. We don't have a lot of wind, and we don't expect any today. But let's see what's coming up next. Yeah, see, the winds are not, it's a little breezy out there, but not a big deal at all.
Not much of the way of gusts right now either.
No. Pretty tranquil day. It's if you didn't know what was happening, you wouldn't dream that we were getting a snowstorm tonight.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's most of the wind chills are in the 20s. Some teens up to the north and west of the city. And what you got next?
I'll pull up the Futurecast here.
Yeah, there we go. There's some timing for you.
So that's going to roll all the way through. I'll pull that up again for you.
Yeah, and
do it a little bit
maybe
slower.
Maybe do a little...
there we go.
Yeah, oh, good. You can pause. So, yeah, there's about 8 o'clock. I would say between 8 and 10, most will start to see the first snowflakes. But if you're at the shore or southern Delaware, you'll probably only get rain out of this storm. I think it'll remain above freezing there. See where the green is in Atlantic City? That's rain, but above it is the pink, and that's the line between the rain and the snow, which could indicate the possibility of some sleet or a mix of precipitation. But most of the models are wanting to give us light snowfall in Philadelphia through the night. There's 4 in the morning when we start on Good Day Philadelphia. And I think that we'll make it a quick couple of inches in the mountains, in the Lehigh Valley, Berks and Lancaster County. Maybe most models are calling for maybe a half an inch in Philadelphia. The problem is it's during the early part of the morning rush hour, and it will be slippery in some spots. You know, it doesn't take much to make a mess. By 8 or 9 o'clock, it's out of here. So it's a quick moving storm, not a major storm. It may be a blessing that some kids have off school tomorrow in advance of the holiday weekend.
Right.
Some kids have half a day. Maybe their whole day will get canceled. Who knows? But I think our biggest danger is slippery roads.
Here's a look at the that storm moving in across the continental the east, and then across the middle of the country. That's where the second storm's coming from, right?
Yeah, West Coast. And it's bringing lots of rain to parts of California, Oregon, Washington State, and by the time it gets here, we're going to get a lot of precipitation as well.
I've got the Futurecast for that storm.
Yeah, now we're at Saturday evening, about 6 o'clock. You see some snow spreading into Philadelphia to the south of us. A very similar setup, but there's a lot more moisture with this storm, the weekend storm. So whatever you get, you'll get a lot more of it. If you get rain, it'll be a lot of rain, heavy at times, and places like up in the mountains could really see that snow pile up. But as you go through Saturday night into Sunday morning, you see the milder air moving in and rain taking over, even briefly up in the mountains. So that continues through the early part of Sunday. Now we see the storm itself exiting to the northeast. On the back edge of that storm comes some colder air. That could come as early, it looks like now, as 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and give us a quick couple of inches of snow to end the storm. And then the big drama will be how quickly it gets very, very cold. There's a shot of polar air moving in as soon as that storm moves out, giving the possibility of a flash freeze. Kathy and Scott have talked about that a lot last night on the news. We've been talking about it for a couple of days in the morning. It is rare that this happens, that the colder air will filter in so quickly. Usually we'll have a chance to dry out before that happens, but every surface is going to be wet, either with snow or rain, as a result of what happens all day on
So
Sunday.
you're going to have to be conscious of
So
black ice.
we're going to ice up.
Yeah.
And I think with enough wind, and there are indications we could have some decent wind, we could see tree limbs come down, we could see power lines come down. So I would be prepared with the flashlights and a generator maybe for some power outages.
I've got your points here about Storm 1. As you said, late today and tomorrow morning we're going to feel the impacts here.
Yep. Yeah, so we get started at 4 on good day. I think it'll be snowing then. 5 to 8 a.m. is general. I think maybe around 7 o'clock the storm will be out of here. And there could be a couple inches on the ground in, let's say, Lancaster, maybe Allentown. Some icy spots everywhere, except the shore. I think it'll stay above freezing there.
Okay. And I know you had, hold this up. This is your forecast for today. So 35, it's mostly cloudy. It's later tonight that we start to feel the problems.
Precipitation. Yeah, it stays dry pretty much all day. It should be a chilly but decent day.
All right.
Again, if you didn't know, you'd never guess.
And then, we're calling today a 6 on the weather by the numbers.
Right, and I picked a 6 because it would be a lower number if the precipitation was coming earlier. But, I think we'll get through the day just fine.
All right. We could talk a little bit about the flash freeze that you mentioned. What things to watch for? Watch that temperature gauge on your dashboard while you're driving?
Yeah, and if you're going out in the afternoon on Saturday, you're looking out the window saying, oh, well, it's not that much snow, it's just an inch or two. Watch where you're walking, because anything that looks wet will be frozen fast. That's what, it's pretty much in the name, flash freeze. Things freeze up very quickly.
Right.
It wouldn't be unheard of that you'd be driving along on a wet roadway and all of a sudden have a spin out. It really will happen that quickly.
And then here is the 7-day.
There it is. Yeah, you see the arrow there on Sunday. Dramatic drop in temperature from an early high of 44 degrees. Afternoon temperatures will drop. We'll start the holiday Monday morning with a single-digit temperature, but the wind chills will be below 0 on Monday. And with a high of only 16, we could still see below 0 wind chills during the day on Monday because it is supposed to be kind of a blustery day.
Unfortunately, that's a morning. There won't be as many students at the bus stops that morning.
No, kids are off school, but a lot of people are doing service projects.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, did you know that Philadelphia has the largest, of course you did, the largest Martin Luther King service project assembly, I guess you would say, in the country.
Our local school district has started to do something like that through the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see. The problem is the outdoor service projects might have to be postponed with this bitter, bitter cold.
Yeah, and Tuesday morning, it looks like it'll be almost as cold Tuesday morning.
Yeah, it will. Now we'll recover to maybe, I wouldn't even call that regular cold because a normal high temperature for this point in January is around 40.
Is this the much spoken of polar vortex that you hear about a lot?
Yeah, this is air right from the North Pole. Thank you, Santa Claus.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it and helping us understand what we're facing.
Well, stay safe through all of this, and like I said, we'll be with you through Good Day tomorrow to get you through tomorrow morning's storm.
That sounds great. Thank you, Sue. Here's another look at those 2 storms. We'll be watching. Of course, we'll have Sue and our weather team, the Fox 29 Weather Authority, will have the forecast for you on the Fox 29 News at 5, 6, 10, and 11 tonight. You can get it anytime on our Weather Authority app. We've got the video forecast in there. You can get the school closings and stuff if you flip around in there. We also have them in our news app. So the video forecast is in the news app too now. So
use the weather app all the time for the radar especially. I can promise you, the minute I wake up tomorrow, I'll be, where's the snow?
The hourly forecast, so especially with the temperatures going up and down, that's going to be an important to check. Thank you very much, Sue. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, we are keeping an eye on. This is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is expected to hold her weekly news conference. It was supposed to get underway a little while ago, hasn't yet started. A couple other things we're also watching in Philadelphia. They're supposed to be holding an anti-violence plan announcement. I don't see that camera shot up yet. That's supposed to start at 11, but I'll bring that to you when we have it. And President Trump is supposed to be attending an event at the Pentagon. The crowd is in place there, so I expect that will get underway soon. But we'll keep it here for a moment and take you to the press conference, the weekly press conference of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi as soon as it happens. It looks like the just muted for a second there while a station announcement was going on. It looks like we do have our live camera shot up at this event in Philadelphia. This is where Mayor Jim Kenney is going to be announcing a violence prevention and reduction plan. The mayor is hoping to dramatically decrease the number of killings and shootings in Philadelphia. Our photographer there is getting his camera all set up and ready to go. I'll record one of these other events and bring it to you on tape delay after the Philadelphia News Conference, but we'll bring this to you as soon as it begins. I can read you a little more information from the press release for this event. On September 27th, Mayor Kenney announced a call to action to city leadership to develop a strategy in 100 days to address the increasing gun violence in neighborhoods across the city. Led by Deputy Managing Editor for Public Safety Vanessa Garrett Harley, a city agency working group was formed to analyze, define, and address the issue of community gun violence. The strategies and recommendations are now being made public. Let's listen in.
It's particularly devastating to individuals, families, and the communities in where the violence occurs. The impact and the volume of the gun violence in Philadelphia is so severe that we're now in the midst of a public health crisis. The mayor, as you recall, issued a call to action on violence prevention at the end of September and gave us 100 days for his cabinet and his leadership to get a plan on his desk, task that we took to heart and moved as quickly as we could. That set into motion the convening of a very large work group that was an interdisciplinary, interagency work group consisting of most of the leadership of the top city departments who would be involved in this type of work. And over the last few months, that work developed into the report and the plan that some of you now hold in your hands that we call the Philadelphia Roadmap to Safer Communities. It is very much a roadmap. It has very broad goals, overall strategies, and a series of specific recommendations. If implemented, we believe that this plan can dramatically reduce shootings and homicides in the city over the next 5 years. This is a plan that we have worked very strategically with both the police department, members of the city, the community, and others to try to come up with. In a few minutes, you'll hear from Theron Pride. He's the Senior Director of the Violence Prevention Office. His title is specifically around strategies and initiatives and programs. And he's going to walk you through and give everyone sort of a quick review of the roadmap. I know that Mayor Kenney is very much committed to this plan. The government is committed, and we all approach this task with the urgency that is required as we recognize that, unfortunately, people are being shot and or killed on a much too consistent basis. With the support of the community and our partners across the city, we'll achieve our vision for every Philadelphian to be safe from gun violence in their communities, with full access to opportunities to create their path to a fulfilling life. And now, Mayor Jim Kenney, come up and speak.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and I'm glad that we have such a large crowd here to discuss our ongoing plans to continue to try to push down this gun violence and homicide in our city. It'll be a new approach to tackling one of the most difficult challenges our city faces, the epidemic of violence. Our plan may be new, but this issue is far from it. Violence has unfortunately plagued Philadelphia for generations. We're doing everything we can to change it. These past 3 years, we've taken big steps to address violence in our communities. We launched the Community Crisis Intervention Program, which deploys prevention teams in neighborhoods that use respected messengers from the very community to intervene and diffuse tensions before incidents turn to violence. We've expanded the Youth Violence Reduction Partnership to provide needed supports to young people most at risk of gun violence with the goal of connecting them to more positive experiences. We've invested in more alternatives to incarceration, treatment, and rehabilitative programming through the MacArthur Grant. But despite all of this, clearly more needs to be done. We need a new approach, one that looks at violence through the lens of public health. Last September, I called upon members of our cabinet and senior leadership to place on my desk a plan for how we will dramatically reduce the killings and shootings in our city. We sought to map out a more robust and comprehensive response to violence that focuses on prevention as well as enforcement and reentry. We must get away from the mindset that policing is the only answer to this problem. It was also important that we rely on data and science to identify the most effective strategies to address these issues. As we were developing this plan, we all sat down with many, many residents who have been deeply impacted by violence in neighborhoods across the city to hear their concerns and their ideas. Based on their feedback and research conducted by the Office of Violence Prevention, we now have a strong set of actionable recommendations to present to you today. These recommendations recognize that violence is ultimately a symptom of the larger crisis of pervasive poverty in Philadelphia. They call for addressing the inequities in communities most prone to violence, investing in intelligence-based and community-oriented policing, as well as better supporting the reintegration of formerly incarcerated individuals. We are committed to investing $4.4 million over the next 6 months to begin implementation of these recommendations, and that's just the start of funding. I will present our budget to City Council early March. At that time, I will propose a more significant commitment to implementing this plan. And I look forward to continued conversations with Council on these investments as they review the entire budget and the 5-year plan. You'll soon be hearing all of these recommendations in more detail. I want to thank Vanessa Garrett Harley, Theron Pride, and the rest of our team for their hard work in putting this plan together. And I want to thank members of the City Council that are here today, especially Council President Clark, Curtis Jones, Deanna Johnson, Bill Greenlee, here. They are all been in the forefront of this issue, pushing us every day. We need their support and their wisdom going forward. Now, pleased to accept their findings, look forward to working with all of our partners to start implementing them as soon as possible. We simply can't wait any longer. One life lost to violence is one too many. I want to thank you, and now we'll hear from Theron to walk us through these particular plans. I just want to say that the hundreds of people that we met with in the course of this process, and the moms and dads and brothers and sisters that we heard from, and the heartbreak that they feel that they'll never get over, and the loss of their loved ones. I met a woman who lost 2 sons. And to listen to their pain, we must commit ourselves to making these young men our children also, as we did when we started our PHL pre-K and our rebuild program. We've taken ownership of all of our young babies to get them where they need to be. Now we need to intervene and get our arms around the young people who resort to violence as a result of just daily interactions, drugs, and other things. They are our children also. We owe it to them, and we want to see this homicide trend going down as it was up until 2017, and we want to get it back on track, declining, and our ultimate aspirational goal is 0. And we want to thank you all for all your help. There will be continued interaction with the community through the course of this process. We will have quarterly meetings with stakeholders to get feedback and change and adjust what we do. But we are committed to this. We are serious about this, and we're willing to invest the money necessary to get it done. So I want to thank you all for being here today, and I'd like to ask Theron to come up and walk you through.
Good morning, everybody. Again, I'm Theron Pride. I'm the Senior Director of the Office of Violence Prevention. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to walk you through a 100-day effort that really is an example of the commitment in the city of Philadelphia to end this. Not simply prevent and reduce, but to end it, as the mayor said, one life lost is too much. This process, though very quick, my experience working previously with the Department of Justice and the Obama administration, this usually took months to do. But everyone in this city came together in a way that I had not seen in other jurisdictions, to partner, to share, to collaborate. And I think this is the first step to many conversations and other action items that we will roll out. So I will take the few moments that I have to cover at a high level of what we talked about in this plan. I certainly encourage you to get a copy, to go online, to download it, to look closer at it, to further critique and to further engage with us in terms of this is the city's plan. We recognize that it's not just the city that has work to do. It's all of us. It's everyone in all the communities in Philadelphia to come together to solve this. This is a problem that impacts all of us. We start off with this roadmap as a way forward, as a first step in a journey of many more steps to come. So with that, I'll go to the first slide in the presentation to just tell you that how we try to define the issue. And I'll be clear with you that I know that when we talk about numbers, behind numbers are real lives. So I don't want to minimize the fact that lives have been lost. And for many of you in the room who have been impacted by this, I don't want this to be a cold presentation. But the reality is, we do see that a lot of this violence is happening in communities that have high rates of poverty. The mayor has said this to us repeatedly, that we have got to find a way to address this issue. And the map that you see in this slide, the green dots and yellow, the yellow dots and the red dots point out the shootings and the homicides. And then those dark blue, dark purple areas on that map is where poverty is concentrated at the highest. And you'll see in our report that it maps almost perfectly in terms of where the highest levels of poverty are. There also you find the most homicide shootings. We also found that approximately 35% of those who were shot or who are the ones doing the shooting are black males. And that they're most commonly between the ages of 16 and 34. We also found that the individuals involved in gun violence have obviously complex histories, as many of you know. and a majority have had prior contact with city government and the criminal justice system. All of which, in looking at the problem, tells us there's a real opportunity to get to individuals well before the shooting happens. We meet these folks. We know these individuals. With our partners in law enforcement, with our community partners working with them in the organizations that serve community, with the city agencies that touch these lives, we have an opportunity here to get to these individuals much earlier. Let's go to the next slide. So, because we took a look at the data, we tried to understand who is most at risk and who is most affected by this violence. We know it has no bounds in terms of the pain felt. But we were able to identify that these young men, between 16 and 34, largely men of color, are the ones that we should pay special attention to. Not that black men are inherently dangerous. Let me be clear. Black men are not inherently dangerous. If you look around this room right now, you'll see a lot of accomplished black men in this room. But there are young men in our city who, because of the circumstances that they face every day, and the choices, though very difficult, they have to make, find themselves caught up in a cycle of violence. We want to look at the families, the neighborhoods, the neighbors, the service providers that touch the lives of these young people, particularly these young males of color between the ages of 16 and 34. Next slide. So using a public health approach, trying to come with a holistic solution and looking at this population that still needs our help and support, we lay out a vision that says every Philadelphian will be safe from gun violence in their communities with full access to opportunities to create their path to a fulfilling life. It's not enough to have a reduction or prevent gun violence. There needs to be something in place of that. The opposite of gun violence is opportunity. Let me say that again. The opposite of gun violence is opportunity. Where there's opportunity, gun violence has a harder chance to rear and occur. So within that vision, we have four goals. Four goals that guided our work with our partners in community, with our partners across the city. We came up with these large buckets to kind of organize our thinking in terms of how would we achieve this vision of every Philadelphian being safe from gun violence with full access to opportunities. We said there needs to be more connection and thriving youth and young adults in the city. We know that there needs to be stronger community engagement and partnerships. We need to have more coordinated city services and planning. And we need to have safer and healthier neighborhoods. Those were some of the key goals that we needed to achieve if we wanted to reach our vision. Next slide. And so within that framework, those four large goals and that vision, we offered up some key recommendations to the mayor, who was very clear that we had to get this done in 100 days. And so we wanted to go back to the mayor and be clear in terms of what we needed, because we know that he was going to hold our feet to the fire if we don't get this done in terms of also implementing. And so we offered key recommendations at the top to say clearly what we have to do at a minimum just to get this to where it needs to be. So first and foremost, we need to promote community health and well-being by prioritizing the reduction of structural violence. It's those things in community that often go unfelt, but you see it, you know it. They impact lives, they harm lives and families. We have to get at the root causes of those structures, those institutions that serve as barriers and constraints to people meeting their basic needs. That's key. We also need to build on the administration's successful criminal justice reforms by improving reentry programs and services. As I said earlier, in defining the issue and looking at the problem, we know people are touched by the criminal justice system before they find themselves a shooter or a victim of homicide. There's a real opportunity for us to improve reintegration so that people are successful and thriving in their communities when they return as one more way, as a key strategy in terms of being ahead of this gun violence. And of course, we need to invest in additional analytical capacity and technology to implement what we'll refer to as Operation Pinpoint that Commissioner Ross will talk about a little bit later. But it's key that in prevention, we partner with law enforcement to have a very focused approach on those who are most high risk. And they need the tools to do that pinpoint strategy in regards to who are the individuals we need to be most concerned about. And so building that capacity out, to getting them to a level where they have what they need to better help us focus on where we need to put our limited resources is key. So those are the three key recommendations. Next slide. And so, of course, even with those three, in our report, you'll see that there's further things delineated under each of those three that I mentioned. But we go further. This was a group that was not short on aspiration or ambition. And so we laid out within the 4 goals broader action items that we also wanted to take. And at the top, in those goals that I talked about earlier, we certainly want to see that when we talk about connection and thriving youth and young adults, we want to ensure that young men in particular, at the highest risk of gun violence, between the ages of 16 and 34, and their families, have a clear path to proven prevention and intervention programs. Those are the people we need to reach. And if we're talking about everyone in the city being connected to the supports they need and thriving, we need to focus on these young men. We also, when we talk about coordination of city services, we need to use police and health and other data to better identify the people and places driving the violence in our communities and more effectively target policies, programs, and services to address these issues. As I said before, working with police and our other partners in public health, we want to be able to better use the data we have access to really identify where best to direct our resources. It's not enough to say everyone gets the same thing. There are certain folks who face particular challenges who need additional help, and we need to be able to do that in a very effective way. We also need to invest resources in programs and services and infrastructure that help to promote the safety, health, and wellness of all Philadelphians. If we're going to have safer neighborhoods, we have to make sure, even at a physical level in community, things improve. And we certainly need to increase public awareness of the root causes of gun violence and focus initiatives in communities at the highest risk. If we're going to have strong community engagement and partnership, we need to be working with community to identify where they see the needs and make sure, again, we're focusing our attention on those areas. So the last slide. I'll close my remarks by saying this ultimately is the illustration of the vision. You see in this picture young men of color, graduating, with opportunity and promise. You see faces that are bright and smiling. This is where the city of Philadelphia needs to go. This will not happen overnight. We didn't get to here overnight. It will be a long process. We all work together and come together on following through on this roadmap and bring our resources that we have collectively to this issue. That's the picture we can see on every young person in Philadelphia, including our young men of color. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, everyone. All right, so obviously a very serious issue, one we deal with each and every day. Philadelphia Police Department, like most police departments, recognizes that there's no singular panacea for the prevalence of, or dealing with the prevalence of gun violence on our streets. So that being said, what we're instituting is something that Theron mentioned called Operation Pinpoint, which combines effective elements of community-oriented and intelligence-led policing models that you see all across this nation, many of which that we've employed over the years. Operation Pinpoint is a multifaceted crime-fighting and information-sharing strategy designed to identify, collect, analyze, and disseminate information. Officers and commanders will use this information to target the most violent offenders and the areas most affected by violent crime. Operation Pinpoint integrates all that we know about policing our neighborhoods and in a planned, targeted, and measurable way. Pinpoint combines something you've heard called hotspot policing, offender focus, problem solving, and community policing. Pinpoint utilizes data, technology, and on-the-ground experience. Pinpoint is a data-driven and evidence-based, but also includes crucial input from experienced officers and investigators in the field. Information gathered is evaluated in real time and is actionable intelligence is provided to officers and commanders on a daily basis. Field officers will receive pinpoint intelligence from crime analysts before and during their tours. In turn, they will patrol these targeted areas and collect information from their observation, witnesses, community members, and offenders in the areas. Operation Pinpoint will augment our existing crime prevention and response strategies and initiatives, and we believe will have an appreciable impact on gun violence in Philadelphia. So I know you will have questions later, but at this time, I know I'm supposed to call up Councilman Jones and Kenyatta Johnson, but obviously we have the council president here and Councilman Green. I don't know who else is coming up, but
First of all, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for putting together with your staff an outline for addressing this crisis. I often say with my colleagues in chambers, if 300 whales washed up on the shore of the Schuylkill River, every marine biologist in the world would come to Philadelphia to figure out why so many whales had died. We average about 300 murders a year. Right here in Philadelphia, multiply that by the other big cities, you can see this epidemic being built. This is a good start. But let me tell you, this is the relationship with the grassroots groups, the La Quayum every day. I don't answer these calls right away until I look at the news nowadays to see what has happened over the weekend. I used to answer, just want to see you call me. I avoid that now. But let me tell you why. I walk my dog every morning. Captain Jack Jones, he is more recognized in my community than me. We walk of a corner that I used to stand on at 54th and Euclid. There's a young man at that time of day. He was ending his shift. I was beginning my day. And he would look at me when he saw me. He would want to run, but he didn't. He manned up and said, "You caught me. I'm here again." And we had a long conversation, and all he really wanted, he ran that corner, all he really wanted was a job. He said, "This is no fun for me, old head. This is not the kind of life I picked out when I was in middle school, but I don't know what's left for me." While you were writing this report, and I'm glad it's done, that man was shot to death on that same floor. So my colleague and I, about the urgency of time, and this mayor understands we got to do this now. Because every year, every month that we delay, someone, and often more than one, wind up victims of this. So as we looked at some of these aspects of the program, I'm excited about the potential for them, because it covers the major food groups that the best prevention of gun violence is a job. Mike Jones, I've never met a $50,000 a year gangbanger. So as we look at these links to the chain, I see the head of the school district here. He's a part of it. He was there. I would have given up to. So the school to prison pipeline is real. Reentry is real. Here's my man, so he was in that room when I found out that boy got killed. We were up at I didn't know you were Winfield, but I found that out. So yesterday we were doing this. You'll hear from Councilman Johnson. We don't watch the news the same way anymore. Between my district, Council President's district, and Janie Blackwell's district, we watch the news and say, first, we pray for the soul that was taken. And the second thing, we want to know the geography of where it was taken. Because we know we have to do certain things after that. So I'm excited, Mr. Mayor, and I'm thankful that for the first time in my recollection, since State Streets, there is a plan that is coherent. I know when we're talking about saving the environment that we are, what the 3 steps we want to do. If you talk about economic development in our chambers, I know what we're going to do. When we talk about education, I know what we're going to do. For the first time in a long time, we have a game plan. It's not perfect, but it's a beginning. Thank you.
echoing the comments of my colleagues, I want to thank Vanessa and her team for leading this effort. Can we give them a round of applause first and foremost? The mandate by the mayor was for 100 days, and they came to the table yesterday rolling out their plans with their recommendations. And we all know as a city right now, we're in a state of emergency. We are in a state of an emergency. So I thank the mayor for not only charging his team to come up with a plan, but most importantly, stepping up with a budget proposal and the resources to allow us to execute this plan. As Councilman Curtis Jones mentioned, we have community groups organizing on the ground day in and day out, trying to prevent young men from killing one another. But I'm also happy that our commission has resources to make sure we find out where these guns are coming from. No gun factories in Point Breeze or Strawberry Mansion. And so in order for us to reduce this level of crime and violence that we're seeing in the city of Philadelphia, it's going to take all of us to step up to the plate to get involved. After this press conference, we're going to another press conference in South Philadelphia, where we have a Stop the Violence mural at Ralph Brooks Stoplight at 20th and Tasker Street. This is a mural that I watched since I've been a young man growing up in South Philadelphia after I lost my own passion of gun violence and started my own organization called Peace Not Guns. But the point is, this mural has about 30 young people who were murdered in the streets of South Philadelphia. And so it's ironic that we're doing this press conference today here to address the same issue I've been dealing with since I've been a young man growing up in South Philadelphia. So, Mr. Mayor, we thank you and your team for stepping up to the plate, and the members of the City Council. Councilman Clark, he's been focusing on stopping where these guns are coming from. Because as a young man growing up, I remember that you would get a revolver, Councilman Jones. A revolver, but the average young person today carries a 45, AR-15. If we don't get to the bottom of where these guns are coming from, Commissioner, I watched on the news the other day some guys outside in the snow and got out and they blazed in the shooting like they in some land that's not being regulated. So from the law enforcement standpoint, sir, we need to find out where these guns are coming from and let those who shoot indiscriminately, because I have 2 young sons growing up who are African-American young men. And I have to recognize as a father, I'm a politician, as a father, their chances of becoming young adults are based upon the job that we do here in the city of Philadelphia that will allow them a chance to follow their goals, their dreams, and their aspirations. So for me, this is not politics. This is something I believe in. I thank everyone for this particular task force and this report, but now we got work to do. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Councilman, you talked about you were growing up, people were able to get revolvers. When I was growing up, people actually had zip guns. Go back a little ways. I'm just saying. But I say that to say that the simple reality is this violence is not new. Violence will always be some level of violence. But the level of violence that we're experiencing today is a different type of violence. The man getting shot in the face last night, because I guess he only had $20. I mean, what is that about? Right? What is that about? I mean, this is a different breed, man. You know, and I just want to say, I'm glad that we're standing here today, this level. You look at the people in this room, cross-section of people. Most people have been talking about this forever. You know, we've had a couple of meetings to discuss on the street presence. We obviously talked about the need to put additional resources for the police department. We talked about the fact that we've got to deal with the underlying problem, is lack of opportunity, people not having a sense that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Some of this stuff is generational, right? That's the reality. But today we're here, and I'm seeing the level of commitment that we need to make, right? The willingness to do. Mayor, I'm assuming on your budget message, you'll be asking us passing their money. No, probably get the appropriate office, and we'll be responsible for winning the votes for that. But the reality is today, I'm pleased at the level of commitment that I'm seeing, the need to understand that this is a comprehensive approach. There is no one entity that can solve this. It has to be everybody in this room. As I look across the room, I see a lot of individuals that have been out there grinding. I see a number of people that are in the enforcement issue, a number of people in the social services working together. I think we can get this done. We got to make it there, because at the end of the day, we will never be the city that we think we are until we create a safer community for everybody. So I just want to thank everybody here today. God bless you all. And we'll do it again.
So at this time, we're going to ask Shantae Love, who is the program director for Every Murder is Real, or MIR, Healing Center, to come up. Shantae has been working with us, and actually we kicked off our community listening tours, as I call them. And that was, we tried to go out to the community in all of the various areas of the city who have been experiencing an uptick in both the shootings and the homicides. So we've been all over the city, North Philly, South Philly, West, Southwest. But we kicked it off up in Germantown with Shantae. So she's going to come and bring you some perspectives from the community. Thank you, Shantae.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you all for all of us gathering in this moment. I'm from Every Murder is Real, a community-based healing center that impacts families impacted by homicide and violent crimes. When we decided to come together, can I have my brother Bilal? Could you join me? My brother Anton, my brother Terry. When we decided, yes, my brother, because when a community hurts together, we must heal together. This, like our elected officials, I want to thank you, because they did a tour around the city, met with community partners. What we did was come with a comprehensive, holistic, trauma-informed approach that connects the dots. See, the fabric of our communities is been ripped apart. The resiliency band has been stretched thin. And it was a requirement, it was a desire, it was necessary for that the rubber meets the road. Is that community partners like my brothers that stand behind me, that we've been in this fight to save a race of people for a long time. And for our elected officials and Office of Violence Prevention, to say, listen, let's all put our hats together. Let's all come together. It's profound for not only our city, but other states that are looking at us. Because we create leadership. We make differences. We make things happen here. And so something horrible has been happening in our communities. And in order for us to make this happen, community investment had to happen. And for elected officials to say, listen, we need to come together as one. You don't see this across the country. Not like this. My partners, we've been in this struggle for many years. And we have said, guess what? Today, right now, that our communities, our black and brown brothers and sisters, we needed to save a race. And we needed some support. So the idea of infusing some support and some resources, also bringing our evidence-based models to the forefront, that we do this collectively. Community, law enforcement, politics. We grasp the community. We are the pulse. And it is required that we hear the voices. And so we've screamed loud, and they've heard our call. No, it might not be perfect, but it's a start. And we must all band around it, together, investing in our communities that come from people that look like us, that understands us, that can deliver messages of hope and healing. This is what we're doing. All of us talking together, the same language, sharing information. See, us community partners, we share. But this opportunity here for us to do something phenomenal so that the dreams don't die. So that I don't say there once was a black man. What I'm saying is that we are fabric, we're connected like a quilt. And that the families that grow, that will thrive, that will have the opportunities, shall survive. And that's important. And that's important. And that the resources that come behind it, that city council say, yes, we're behind it. Because it's comprehensive. It allows voices to be heard. It allows impact of what we're doing to be real. I know a lot of people say, you done heard this. But no, this is different. This is different. Because we've all said we're coming together as one. Because every murder is too real. And every life is too important. And then I say once again, we hurt together, we heal together, we thrive, we live, we grow, we succeed, and we are powerful. I want to thank you, Mayor, for allowing us to kick that off, solution driven. And we're in this together. Thank you very much.
Shante, we thank you for that. All of these people that you saw standing here and all the brothers who were supporting her are all people who have been very nice to me, have hosted me as I went out into these communities to figure out what was going on. We call it a listening tour because nobody knows better than the community what's going on in the community, right? And they told us what went on, and they also came up with some viable solutions. And there are many more in this room that we do want to say thank you to. Also want to say thank you to, there's so many people here that have helped tremendously. The work group had leadership from all of the major agencies in the city, and I see some of the commissioners here. Special thank you to Dr. Farley from the health department so that we came at this from that public health director. But I have to tell you, Dr. Farley, my brother Bernard Washington, who's chief of epidemiology, we could not have done this without Bernard. Even when I called him at 1 in the morning, he answered. And so I want to say thank you to Bernard especially. I see Supervisor Judge of Criminal Court Tucker is here supporting and is also the chairperson of CJAB, which is phenomenal. I see other judiciary here, Judge Murphy and Judge Olszewski, and they have that juvenile justice component. Dr. Height, thank you so much. I know how difficult it was for Dr. Height to come, but the education is a key part of that plan and how we deal with and educate our folks. And I'm only calling out a few people, but I just want you guys to see that everybody is committed to doing this work and working together holistically. So at this time, we'll conclude. We have a few minutes if any members of the press have questions.
Talk a bit about how you engage the public. You said that you had meetings with the public. How did you engage the public, and how did they get, what kind of input did they get from folks?
So his question was, can I talk a little bit about how we engage the public and what kind of input we got from folks in the community? Initially, my Office of Violence Prevention, I call them boots on the ground. They're kind of out there in the street, so they know a lot of folks in the different communities. Some of it was based on folks who came up to them. Sometimes I got emails or phone calls from people who said, I understand you're in this position. Now, I've only been here 6 months, but I want to help you, right? I hear you want to do something different. So we would follow up those phone calls and emails, or they would identify people. Ultimately, they would pull together community meetings, and there would be a variety of folks there from the various communities. So we've been to North Philly, South Philly, 1 or 2 places in South Philly, West Philly, Southwest, and a few other places, Germantown, other places. We also did targeted focus groups. So we met with trying to get input from young people, because that's real important to me. And many in the room know I had that kind of child welfare, juvenile justice background. We went to meet with young people who unfortunately are incarcerated and being charged as adults who had gun crimes. Did a special focus group with them. We met with the juvenile lifers. These are gentlemen who have served, some of them have served 45 years in jail. Got out recently, that Supreme Court decision was done, and they really want to help. Met with some of the groups in conjunction with the Mayor's Commission on Youth at some of the high schools and others to get input from there. I don't have them all off the top of my head, but we met with a significant number, focused to get information, but also across the department. Now, what will come out, this is not one and done. It's not a plan that's going on the desk. I know you haven't had time to read it yet. It does contain a governance structure. In that structure is an implementation team, which we plan to get started in February. Continuing meetings to make sure that the plan gets implemented. And part of that is we're going to be doing quarterly meetings with the community and giving a quarterly update on the progress of the plan and the recommendations. But I still have many, many more meetings planned with community folks and other focus groups that we're still planning to do.
Mayor, $4.4 million coming from local communities.
I didn't hear the question. Could you say it one more again?
I said $4.4 million number you said. Where is it coming from? What will be used for?
Well, Vanessa will tell you what it's going to be used for. It's coming from a transfer ordinance that will be introduced to council. And then we'll walk through the process of the budget and commit to funding as necessary all of these programs in the next budget. So this will get us through this fiscal year, and then budget address will be March 1st or 2nd. Then we'll go through that budget process and then make sure that the funds are in place for next year.
How much for next year?
We'll have that discussion with council on what we're going to get ahead of the budgeting process. Council will have their input and their priorities, and we'll base the price tag on what we come up with in the end. But the commitment is there for millions of dollars to continue this through for the next 5 years at least.
So just to answer your question on what the $4.4 million is being used for, that is because we recognize the urgency of what's going on right now. And so that's this fiscal year, FY19. So prior to June 30th, the commitment is for $4 million. There is a outside funding included in that 4.4 is $2 million from Philadelphia Works, committed to workforce development funding, an additional job training, job readiness, and employment contract. So that's $2 million of it. An additional targeted, we call them targeted community investment grants. Some folks might call them micro grants. Another $250,000, and already have $250,000. So let's say $500,000 that will be going into the communities. There are a lot of good organizations and groups who have been doing work in the communities, not getting resourced or funded, that we want to be able to work with so that they can continue the work that they're doing. 2,000 of it is money that has been identified from the Department of Public Health, who are creating an injury prevention unit that will do many things, but also do homicide death review so that we can learn from the additional homicides as many other cities and jurisdictions are doing. There will be an expansion of the Community Crisis Intervention Program. $500,000 is headed towards that. We are currently in 4 areas of the city, but we want to be able to geographically expand. That's the new program that we started in July of 2018. Those staffers who work for a CCIP work non-traditional hours and days. They work from Thursday through Sunday, 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. Because when we look at the crime data, those are the times and dates where the crime most occurs. So a $500,000 expansion of that. And also for police technology upgrades, so that we can talk about adding additional surveillance cameras and some of the other intel needs, so we can begin that process of adding some of the intelligence so that we can take advantage of the intelligence from the police and also community intelligence. And then YVRP, which is the Youth Violence Reduction Partnership, which is a specialized probation and parole that identifies those at highest risk of either killing or being killed. We are in many police districts right now, but we're in several police districts. We'd like to be in more, $250,000 expansion for that with some additional staffing so that we can move into other districts. So that answers your question in terms of the breakdown.
Commissioner, can you talk about what's different about Operation Point? What's new?
Well, admittedly, some of the evidence-based stuff is things we were doing. What we're doing is kind of collating it all together, particularly as it relates to some of the offender focus. We were doing that, but realizing that we need to drill down even further and really reach out and touch folks. So just as an example, it's already underway. For some, it's not just about stopping people on the street. In fact, that's not even most of it. It's literally about knocking on people's doors who we think are going to be targets, who may be shooters, and literally letting them know about our concern for their well-being and the fact that we are very much aware of their circumstances. So
It is a blend of a lot of what we've been doing, using the evidence-based intelligence model. With me here is Chief Inspector Dan McDonald. What we are candidly doing, he is one of the architects of Pinpoint, and just to give you a snapshot of who he is, in addition to being an experienced Chief Inspector, Dan is also a career military guy who has served 3 tours overseas in Afghanistan and Iraq, where he is an intel officer in the United States Army. And so, Dan, I don't know if you just want to speak a little bit about just some of the components without getting too much in the weeds, but we can obviously follow up later about what we're doing relative to training, what we're doing relative to some of the more nuanced things that we're implementing in the program.
Yeah, the police commissioner established the intelligence bureau that I currently manage about 22 months ago. In that time, we looked at all the policing models that we were currently using and brought in some of the best civilian and police personnel to come in and take a look at the crime problems, identify the best models that work, found that different models work from different parts of the city, and then start bringing in data scientists to help us lay this all out. Once we've done that, the police commissioner had us then apply those models around the city. And that's what we're doing now. So it takes all the information that we currently have about crime in the city of Philadelphia, brings it into one location where it's looked at by civilians and police personnel, identify and make predictions on what's going to happen next, and then we let the commanding officers in the patrol districts, the detective bureau, deploy early to create interventions and prevent this sort of stuff from happening. We're in the early stages now, and it's shown some real good success there. But it's what we've done before in a much more streamlined, faster fashion than we've been able to do in the past.
Before you go in there, just one additional thing, I think, and Vanessa outlined the fact that, some of the plan involves getting additional civilian analysts, which is critical. And so we're excited about that for 2 reasons. And we can't say enough about, how flexible the men and women in the sworn ranks are in terms of filling those capacities. But civilians will offer an advantage that we won't necessarily be able to use with our police officers. One, they do look at things a little different. I mean, most of them have been trained from an educational standpoint to be crime analysts. We have kind of been compelled to force police officers in a multitude of different roles, which they've done in a stellar fashion. In addition to which, what they is a force multiplier, because once you get these people, some of the police officers can now go back and they can work in a different kind of intel capacity that will enable us to put them out on the street in different ways.
How is this different from models across the country related to predictive policing, where you're using data scientists and surveillance cameras and facial recognition? How is this different? Or are there any similarities?
I think there's more similarities than there are differences. So I think what you see in law enforcement, first of all, I think like any other industry, whether it be the medical industry or legal, we sit around quarterly, the 70 largest police agencies, Philadelphia is one of them, and we talk about, what's the latest in crime analysis and what are we doing relative to predictive policing and what technology can you leverage to help you. This is fluid. And so what we try to do is not rest on our laurels, recognizing, look, some of you may or may not know, with regard to evidence-based policing, we've been working on a myriad of projects going back at least 6-7 years with Temple University. Foot Beats was one where we've got some national recognition on, how well those things can work. So the blend is not necessarily new, but as Dan said, the streamlined focus of it in terms of getting this intel out, and as I'm saying, particularly as it relates to offender focus, really letting people know on the ground, explaining how we can engage people, knowing who they are, particularly before they get involved. Some of you also know, and it sounds like it's a bit off the beaten path, but for us, it's about using a multitude of approaches, not the least of which is even helping people get employment, because we understand those opportunities, and because some of our folks know some of these individuals very well on these corners, they're trying to get them out of harm's way as well. So recognizing that is just many things you have to do. It's not one, but we are not in any way resting on our laurels, nor is it something brand new to us with regard to intelligence-led policing or evidence-based policing.
Are you guys leaving on the table the idea of using artificial intelligence or facial recognition software in the implementation of this?
Well, artificial intelligence is something we would use anyway. So we already employ facial
recognition. Okay. And so one of the things that, or some of the many things we're going to be able to do with some of this money is again, leveraging technology. Sometimes it's just a matter of improving what you have out there. You know, you heard someone mention about the cameras. We have cameras, and arguably, what some don't know, this city, although sometimes cash-strapped, we've got some super bright people. And so under the auspices of Mike Vidro and OIT and places like that, he actually built his own cameras that, to me, probably rival ShotSpotter that many of you have heard of, where, you know, this is actually tied to the audio aspect and the camera spins. We don't have a lot of them. These are things that we're looking to increase. So it's not something new in that case. That's something about augmentation and enhancement, and that's what we're excited about.
Commissioner, could you talk a little bit about whether there is any more or greater outreach to state government, federal government resources in terms of boots on the ground, investigations, especially chasing after illegal guns?
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So one of the aspects of Pinpoint does deal with working with our state and federal partners. Particularly our federal partners, they're really excited about partnering with us relative to gun trafficking and dealing with just gun crime. We've got a new U.S. attorney, and William McSwain, on board, who is very, very excited about assisting us, and he's really charged his AUSAs as well as the local SACs from the FBI, ATF, DEA, and so forth to really assist us. So we're excited about that because it will involve multiple people and multiple entities in order to get this done. Trafficking guns is done slightly different than it's been done in years past. Many people may know, you know, the days of tractor trailer loads of guns coming and it doesn't even happen that way. The ATF will tell you, you know, whether it be in the form of guns that are stolen from gun shops outside of the city, whether it be in the form of people who legally are licensed to have a gun, but they get them stolen and things of that nature. So this is why I have systematically and routinely, when I'm speaking to you even in the mornings when you grab me, ask even for people who are legally licensed to carry a firearm to make sure that you safeguard that firearm so that it doesn't become an illegal firearm in the hands of someone who shouldn't otherwise possess it. So there are a myriad of things that we're doing with our partners. I just had a meeting the other day with Attorney General Josh Shapiro. It happened to be with my pastor, Alan Waller, and some other folks that were present because it was all about this gun violence. Everybody wants to be a part of it. Everybody knows that they have to play some role. Your role might be very different than the next leaders. You could be in a nonprofit. You could be a coach. You know, you could be an employer. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, you have to, as you know, Vanessa has done. And look, I'm going to do it again. Please just indulge me. Give her another hand. She worked so hard. She talked about this, and everyone else talked about the need to have a multifaceted approach, and that's what we're going to do. Again, you know, a lot of it's not brand new, but you always have to figure out just a more nuanced way to approach it, and I think that's what a lot of it is. But it is about resources too. It's anybody, you know, it was already mentioned before. No one can kid yourself about the fact that you can have the best laid plans in the world, and you touched on the term that we love, boots on the ground. You got to have the boots there too. The boots aren't always in this uniform. Sometimes it's in the form of some of these nonprofit folks who are out there doing this job, who go and herald it all the time. We do a lot of great work. So, but boots on the ground probably is one of the biggest force multipliers that you got above and beyond anything else.
Commissioner, do you see an expansion of or revival of the focus deterrence program?
So that's a good question. So it's a couple things. Now, number one, you are well aware, expert, that focus deterrence cannot be done without the district attorneys. Otherwise, it's not focus deterrence. We already employ or do some form of that in the form of Pinpoint anyway, and even prior to Pinpoint. But remember that it becomes more for us, more stick and carrot. And so you want that multifaceted approach. I keep saying that for a reason. And so you got to talk to the district attorney about, you know, what his level of interest is. But remember, too, when it comes to focusing on individuals, we have to be somewhat tactical, strategic about how we do it, because with focused deterrence, the people are on probation. And thus lies the ability to pull people in for those calls that you invariably know about. And so with us, you know, we have to just use our intel to make contact with these people, knock on doors. Nothing illegal about that, just to say we're concerned about you, but that's not focused deterrence in the aspect that you're alluding to. So we are not opposed to anything like that, but just understand that we cannot do something like that unilaterally. We would need the district attorney, and then we would have to sit down and decide where that works most appropriately. It was a reason why we, some years back, decided to do that in South Philadelphia, because the gangs that involved were so structured, and we knew exactly who fights who all the time. And so it worked well there. There are other places that we think it could work. It may not work in others, but again, I think the important thing to underscore is that we're open to just about anything. And again, whether it be my conversation with Eddie Johnson in Chicago, Mike Moore in LA, or Jimmy O'Neill in NYPD, these are conversations that are fluid. They're happy, they have them with us, and we're always looking for new ways to do different things, and that's the problem.
We have time for one more question.
How do we touch the young people who are rich, who watch their uncle, their father, their cousin selling drugs and resulting in violence, and they don't know that this is not the right thing to do? So if they don't know better, how can they do better? How do we touch those young people? We have to go back home after the after-school program, after that activity. How do we touch them so they won't follow in their family's footsteps?
I would say that's a very difficult question and a very good question, and that's what we're working together to try to figure out. I'm looking at Commissioner Figueroa in the back of the room, who's Commissioner for DHS. Certainly that's something that DHS and to me, Farlow, our deputy, have been trying to work on for a long time. How do we touch that population and show them that there is something different? One of the ways that we have found successful in our employing, part of what our CCIP does, we employ what they call credible messengers. These are folks that I call have lived experience. Others would say they have criminal records, but they have street cred, for lack of a better word. And young people may not listen to me, they may not listen to Commissioner Ross or you, but often they have credibility with them, and they talk to them about the results of the behavior that they've done and where it got them. And so our CCIP program and other programs like that, where you employ those credible messengers, and many of the gentlemen that you saw standing up here have similar type programs where you talk about a different level of mentorship in kind of a different way, helps make that difference for some of them. So that's one of the ways of doing it, but certainly trying to, and we're also have our Department of Behavioral Health, Commissioner David Jones is at the back, talking about from a trauma expert, trauma aspect, how do we get involved with that? Some of it is about the trauma that they've seen in their life. And so what is abnormal to me and you may become normal to some, right? And so how do you break that cycle in terms of normalcy? That's what we'll talk about. But I'll let Shantae.
I apologize. My name is Brandon T. Jones. I'm the Executive Director of the Generation Foundation. I'm also a Love Team co-captain. What it is, I am those credible messages that you're talking about. And to answer the young lady's question over there, what you have to do is not be afraid of us. What you have to do is invite us in. And what you have to do is to listen to us and allow us to give our 10, 15, 20 years on the streets working with these high-risk individuals. You can't be afraid of us. We know how to open up bank accounts. We know how to start businesses now. And we are officials now. We are not criminals anymore. So the moment that we, men like us, get to be trusted inside of our city hall and not just utilized to make things happen for young people, then you can get the breakdown in the family. Men like us can come into the home and deal with them. We can come into the school and deal with them directly. When it's a violent situation, we can deal with them. But the moment that City Hall stops being scared and stops being frivolous about letting us in, these buildings, we need some of these buildings. We need property. We need room to be able to educate them properly. Some of these schools that are closing down. That's how we get to them. I guarantee it. We got to over 100,000 in the last 9 years. Me and my group right here, Terry Starks, OG Law. So that's what has to happen. That's what happened. Mayor Nutter understood it. I know Mayor Jim Kennedy. I did a lot with Mayor Nutter as far as the Cities United campaign and going around the country. All that stuff is good. But here in Philly, you need to trust us. Believe in us and send us in. God bless.
And to my brother and colleague that's in this fight, we understand that, and he's correct, is that we're investing in those, us, what Ms. You're talking about us people in this community investing in each other and changing the image and changing the environment. Community groups that are doing it now, we need to need resources to do it more collectively and connecting the dots. Having more support to do it. And it's happening in small increments. It's happening. But it needs to happen with all of us collectively and that investment happening. You're talking about having people buying people a voice, changing their image, changing the messaging, offering hope, offering opportunity, investing in the communities. And that's what we're talking about. And that does happen. And so when you do have that happening, and you have wonderful things that happen in the midst of crazy, because this is hard. But when you have that happen, something should work, and it will work. We're talking about saving lives, opening doors, like you said, so that we all work as one. Work and work. Because we can have 1,000 ideals, and we are leaders all across the city. But respecting each other, saying, what you're doing there is working well, we need to help you do that. And so I think that's part of this initiative. And so getting that to change the facet, yes, but also changing the environment, buildings that are not being used, allowing us to have access to them, changing the environment, not only language-wise, but the way they see it, and opportunity, investing in the spirit. I'm talking about the spirit of the person, changing the spirit. And that only happens when you take out some of the trauma, infuse them with some hope, have them see a future, not realizing that they live for the moment, but that they can live what their moment should be, helping them dream again. And that can happen. Did that help you?
So we thank you all for coming. We're going to conclude now. Some of us will stick around in case there are additional questions. Thank you.
Paul Ripple here with Fox 29 News Now. You've been watching a news conference where City of Philadelphia officials are unveiling a violence reduction plan, hoping to stem the tide of homicides. Philadelphia had an uptick in homicides last year. They're seeking solutions to try and reduce the numbers there, violence overall, and homicides, murders, violent crime, just a violence reduction plan. While we were with that event, we had a couple of others that occurred. I'll take you back to those. One was House Speaker Nancy Pelosi holding a news conference. This is her weekly news conference where she discusses news of the day, so I'm sure there was plenty about the shutdown here. Let's listen into that. This was earlier in Washington.
Great tragedy of our losing our brave men and women in uniform when they were killed in a terror attack in Syria. So very, very sad. This horrific attack is a stark reminder of the reality of the security threats that we still face around the world. Later today, we'll hold a vote on the administration's termination of sanctions against companies controlled by Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska. We have very informed debate on the floor on this. As I mentioned before, we had a briefing on this, a classified briefing on this last week, which was stiff competition, was the worst classified briefing I've seen from the Trump administration. But very proud of the Democrats in the room who asked very specific questions to the administration. You'll hear some of that debate on the floor. This is very, very important. I'm proud that in the Senate, the vote, while they did not achieve 60, was a strong majority, 57 to 42, to disagree, to disapprove of the actions taken by the administration. And once again, I'm always at temporal markers, so that's today. Next week, as you are aware, we have canceled our district work period next week to stay here to work on legislation to open up government, to continue our ongoing drumbeat of bills to open up government, starting with the bills that the Republicans themselves passed in the Senate but now won't take up, but will go to the next step next week on that. At the same time, we will be working on our agenda for the people to lower health care costs, to increase paychecks by building infrastructure of America and by passing H.R. 1 in the very near future to bring dignity to government by lowering the role of big, dark, special interest money in politics and in government. Once again, we call upon the President to open up government, to reopen government. As I said, we canceled our district work period. This is directly related to our security. The Trump shutdown is undermining that. We're not paying people who keep us safe, the TSA agents who stop bombs from coming onto planes, the FBI agents who track down terrorists in our country, the DEA agents who stop the flow of drugs into our country, and the immigration officials who patrol the border. This senseless shutdown is inflicting great pain in every part of our country. Every day, the impact spread, reaching the lives of hardworking Americans in every corner of the country. I'm particularly concerned about the United Mine Workers of America. They spend a good deal of time in my office because I do believe we owe them so much, even though I'm not a big supporter of coal. I am a big supporter of the coal miners and their health and retirement benefits. Yesterday, I heard from the United Mine Workers of America who warned that reimbursements of health care providers are not being processed, which will lead to the service shortages that jeopardize the health care of 35,000 mine workers if this shutdown continues. Back home in San Francisco, members have stories, and we have a story storm because we're being bombarded by them, and they are the most eloquent, articulate.
I'm going to interrupt this this news conference that we're bringing you on tape delay and get you out to a police chase that's occurring. Let me get you the details here. This is in Dallas, Texas. We're told the police are chasing a gray Ford Focus. This apparently is after an armed bank robbery. They're chasing two suspects armed with handguns from the information we're being provided by our sister station in Dallas. And it appeared when Chopper was zoomed in, it looked like the hood of the vehicle was actually flipped up onto the windshield. So not entirely sure how they can see where they're going, but this does appear to be an active chase. You see the police cars trailing behind the car. Let's watch for a little bit and see what happens. Again, this is a police chase in Dallas, Texas, being brought to us by our sister station there. And we'll bring you any information we get while we watch the chase here. Again, you're watching a high-speed chase from Dallas, Texas. We're told that police are chasing 2 suspects after a bank robbery there. It appears that the vehicle's hood has been flipped up onto the windshield, so trying to get a look and see if the occupants are peering out the windows to see where they're going or what's happening here. But you see police chasing, trying to get ahead of the chase to help keep civilians out of the way and unharmed, while multiple cars chase this. It appears to be a Ford Focus, I believe I read. A gray Ford Focus with paper tags. The suspects in the bank robbery were reported to be armed with handguns. This video footage is courtesy of our sister station, KDFW, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We'll watch what happens here. See police chasing this vehicle after a bank robbery near Dallas, Texas. See, the suspects have exited the vehicle and police are giving chase. Looks like he's going to give himself up there, that suspect. Looks like a police canine has been brought in to help find the other suspect who bailed out of the vehicle. I think I saw perhaps 3 people get out of the vehicle. I started watching the vehicle rolling away. There's one of them. And I believe there was a third who ran in the direction of the home here at this dead end. Again, this is a chase, high-speed chase that occurred in Dallas, Texas after a bank robbery. We're told police were chasing 2 armed suspects. The vehicle appeared to have its hood flipped up onto the windshield, so I guess they were peering out the windows to see where they were headed. Now an active search for the 3rd suspect who got out of that vehicle and took off running. It appears, I believe that's 3 suspects now I've seen in custody. Quick work by police getting them all safely into custody, it appears. A large presence of officers immediately after they ditched the vehicle, and which continued the roll after they got out of the car. Again, this video is courtesy of our sister station, KDFW in Dallas-Fort Worth. Happy to see, hopefully, we didn't see the very beginning of it, but hope nobody was injured during the chase. As you saw, if you were with us when the car was rolling, it appeared that the hood was flipped up and they couldn't even see where they were going to some extent. All right, it's looking like this situation has been resolved. Police searching the suspects now that they have in custody. Going to put the Nancy Pelosi news conference from earlier back up for you. I believe there's a couple minutes left in that, and then we'll show you President Trump's remarks during a missile event at the Pentagon earlier today. Here is the continuation of the news conference. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she talked a little bit about the soldiers who were killed in Syria, I believe soldiers and civilians killed in Syria yesterday. She's talking about the shutdown and other Democratic legislative priorities. Here she is.
Deny their paychecks. People think of public employees, federal employees, only being in the Washington area. No, they're all over the country. They're in small town USA and other places around the country, including the Bay Area. People like EPA employer James Munson from San Francisco explained that he'd have a garage sale and sell everything he owns and won't be enough for 1 month's rent. People like Bay Area NASA employee Sherry Shore, who can't pay her mortgage and was told by the lender, too bad, you're just going to have to wait until your house goes into foreclosure. People like EEOC investigator Mila Kizarsari of San Francisco, who said Trump's wall is imaginary, but my bills are real. This is most unfortunate, and I don't understand why the reality of this in people's lives is not felt or concerned or cared about by the administration. Not only are these workers not paid, they're not appreciated by this administration. These are the people who deliver services to the American people. We should respect what they do for our country. Many of them are veterans who have translated their military patriotism into civilian patriotism working for the government. And they are affected by this. These workers make a difference in the lives of the American people, including security officials who would be protecting the president at the State of the Union address. As I've said to some of you, this is defined by the Secretary of Homeland Security as a national special security event. It means it's elevated to a place where the resources of the government are used to protect that event. It is the President of the United States and the Vice President, the Congress of the United States, House and Senate, the Cabinet, acting as it is, but the Cabinet, Supreme Court of the United States, the Diplomatic Corps, and all that implies in terms of security. The continuation of government is the reason for all of the security as well as the power that is in the room. I have no doubt that our men and women in the federal workforce have the capability to protect. The inference that they want to say is, oh, you don't think they could? Yes, they can. They're professionals. They train for this. They should be paid for this. And that's why I said to the president, if you don't open up government, if that doesn't happen, let's discuss a mutually agreeable date. January 20. The date of the State of the Union is not a sacred date. It's not constitutionally required. It's not any president's birthday. It's not anything. It is a date that we agreed to. It could have been a week later, and it could be a week later if government is open. So it isn't as if that date is sacred for any reason. It was one that was negotiated. What works for you, what works for our schedule on both sides of the aisle. So I just want to make it clear. There is no reason for this to happen. We are over and over again put forth an agenda for protecting our border. It's the oath we take to protect and defend. Securing our borders is a very important part of that. The president says there are all these drugs coming into the country. 90% of the drugs coming over the border come through the ports of entry. And so we have said again and again, let's build the infrastructure of the ports of entry or maybe increase them. Let's facilitate trade and travel and protecting our security with more lateral roads there. Let's increase the personnel. There are nearly 3,000, imagine, 3,000 vacancies in customs. Let's increase the personnel, infrastructure personnel, technology. For several $100 million, we have, there's the capability to scan the cars for drugs, guns, contraband. Technology is there. The will is there. I think there's bipartisan agreement that we should be doing that and to use other technology to protect the border in other ways. The president says the only way to do it is with a wall. That's a debate that we have, but it was no debate that we all agree that protecting our border is the responsibility we have, and that has always been the case. Again, we must respect our workers, protect our borders, and reopen government immediately. Any questions?
Speaker Pelosi, Republicans have been...
ask me again, have we heard from the White
No,
House?
ma'am, I will not. Republicans have talked quite a bit about the comments that you made about saying you would only spend $1 for the wall. This idea of open up the government first, then negotiate.
Do you need to... With all due respect, that's a silly comment on the part of the Republicans. They're desperate. They know we have to open up government. They know. Were you the one asking me, or was it Chad? One of you asked, would you spend $1? I said, yeah, I'll spend $1. But that is not the point, and they know that's not the point. So let's not glorify a silly question on their part.
But do you need to express more willingness to negotiate on that figure for Republicans to get past this idea that you won't talk about it?
And not for a wall.
Madam Speaker.
The Secretary of Homeland Security has said that they could secure the State of the Union. So aren't you just trying to deny the president a platform to deliver this
I'm not
address?
denying the platform at all. We're saying let's get a date when government is open. Let's pay the employees. Maybe he thinks it's okay not to pay people who do work. I don't. And my caucus doesn't either. And before I issued the letter, I consulted with the chair now of the Homeland Security Committee, Mr. Benny Thompson, about he has oversight of that committee and has worked very hard and long on issues that relate to domestic security and domestic terrorism. And he agrees that we should go forward in this way. It isn't a question of are they professional enough. Why we didn't take it there? The question is they should be paid. And as the secretary of any agency, that person should be advocating for her employees to be paid instead of saying it's okay for them to work without pay.
If the president comes back to you and says, no, I want to give the State of the Union at the Capitol on the date we agreed to, What will you do then? Will you allow it to go forward?
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Madam Speaker. Madam
We
Speaker.
haven't heard, very silent, more than 24 hours to your question that you ask me every time I step out of the office. Have you heard? No, we haven't heard yet. Yes, Jed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What about the idea, I know you have concerns about the security here, but considering how everybody is so amped up on both sides of the aisle about this shutdown, the President is amped up that by not doing this at this stage, this is really an effort and might be healthy to lower the temperature, that nothing good could potentially come from that scene in the chamber. Members might not be respectful. President might not be respectful of you. Are you concerned about that?
That's probably true.
Are you concerned? Are you concerned about the temperature getting too high in that room?
I'm concerned about people not having paychecks in their homes. Have you heard the stories of people? What that young woman was on to newlywed. She came home. She was sick. She's diabetic. She had 3 vials left. She didn't know what she was going to do. She thought hopefully the government would open again. It didn't. So she's not taking insulin that she needed for her diabetes. And she even said sometimes when she would go to sleep, she thought it would be easier not to wake up because she didn't take her medicine than to face the fact that she wasn't having a paycheck and couldn't afford her medicine. The father who had a child who was born and needed an operation but couldn't get onto the health insurance program because government was shut down. The list goes on and on. That's the heat that we want to lower, the heat in the lives of the American people, to convey. There's a story storm that is going on all over the country, and we want to convey the reality of this cruel policy in the lives of these workers. And it's not just, although that's a stunning number, 800,000, we care about that statistic, but we care about each and every family that is affected. And it goes beyond those employees into our economy. The economists, even the president's own people, are saying that that GDP will not grow as long as this shutdown is there. And that means that the president's insistence is a luxury the country, insistence on the wall is a luxury the country can no longer afford.
Madam Speaker, based on your concerns, ma'am, don't you as Speaker of the House have an obligation to be at the negotiating table?
We have gone to, what negotiating table are we not at? The last one we went to, I think, was a setup where the president pounded as he gave himself leverage to leave the room. But, no, we're at the negotiating table, and I've never discouraged anybody from not accepting an invitation from the President of the United States, and some of our folks were there yesterday, so I don't know which meeting you're talking about that we're not at.
Well, there don't appear to be any active talks, and so if Congress has the power of the purse, couldn't you just say, fine, I'll give you some money for border security, here's how you're going to use it?
Well, that's what we have been saying. Perhaps you missed it, and perhaps we weren't clear enough, so I'll take responsibility for that. But let me go into it again. 90% of the drugs and many of the asylum seekers coming into the United States come through the ports of entry. We're saying use resources. And by the way, in the last Congress, before we adjourned, we gave the administration exactly what the department asked for, and passed in the Senate. And we, so when you say, why aren't you negotiating? We are negotiating, and we do go to the meetings. But let's be clear. You said, why don't you put... You will be seeing many things unfolding in the next few days about what our next bills will be on the floor. But in case I wasn't clear, 90% of the drugs coming into the country come through the ports of entry. Let's use resources to expand the ports of entry. You have to base... This has to be evidence-based, not notion-mongered. And those ports of entry need more personnel, nearly 3,000 employees, vacancies, positions not filled on the border. And some of it is because of the quality of life. They need more infrastructure to do their jobs in terms of ports of entry, water supply, and the rest. And then we talk about technology. As I said, several $100 million, ranges from $500 million to $700 million for the technology to scan the cars coming through the ports of entry, and that is to detect guns. It's like an electronic dog almost, to detect drugs, guns and other contraband. You're using other technology, other places along the border, and to do so in a way. So it's about infrastructure, it's about some roads to go with it to facilitate trade, immigration, first and foremost, our security, and to do so in a way that honors our values. I don't know if I have this here. I just saw a poll that said, which was interesting because it said, do you think, what was the question? Is George here? Do you think that, do you think that the wall is consistent with our values? Or is it like 51% said no, and 42 or something like that said yes? So this is about who we are as a country, that we're able to protect our borders, our people, and our values. Thank you all very much.
Madam Speaker, is a steel slat fence a wall? What if they find another home here on the Hill?
That was House Speaker Nancy Pelosi delivering her weekly news conference earlier this morning. Let me get you one clip we didn't get to earlier. This is from Good Day Philadelphia this morning. We were having a little bit of one to try and let people know about some things that are available to local families impacted by the partial government shutdown. These are furlough freebies. How some places in our area are opening up their doors to federal workers for free. Many institutions are waiving admission for furloughed workers and their families to help them take their mind off the partial government shutdown that's been going on since December 22nd. We're in record territory here. Philadelphia Weekly writer Andrea Cantor joined us to help share the list that she'd created of these freebies that are out there.
And all the ships that say, this is Andrea Cantor, right?
Yes.
Her middle name is Joy. I was married to a Joy. Joys are great.
Oh.
She's never been on TV, and she's having a little bit of, are you a little nervous?
Just a teensy bit.
So everybody get around the TV and hug the TV right now, okay? Because she's going to need some help.
So much
love. You're going to be great. You're with Philly Weekly.
Philly Weekly, yes.
Okay. So the government shut down now. It's went into its 27th day now. So some area businesses, institutions, stuff like that want to help you out. They're going to let you in free. There's all sorts of free stuff. So let's get right to it. Philadelphia Museum of Art. I can get in free?
Yes. Well, if you're impacted by the partial government shutdown, you can show your valid government-issued ID, and the Philadelphia Museum of Art will give you a complimentary ticket as well as a +1.
There's
over
the Art
here.
Museum, yeah.
So you can take a trip to the Philadelphia Museum of Art's latest and fashionable deer exhibit, or you can venture into the long-standing Arms and Armors display.
That's really good.
Yes.
That's really good. Okay, so let's go around the corner here over at 3rd and Chestnut, the American Museum of the American Revolution. Right?
Yes. Say that 10 times fast.
I can't. I'm in free?
Again, you're in free if you have your valid government-issued ID.
Okay.
And you can take 3 people with you. It's also really good considering maybe you're a little concerned being a government worker within this distressing time. So come back to your roots, see how the country was formed, and enjoy the museum.
It is a great museum.
It is.
Franklin Institute, one of our favorite. Oh, well, hold on. The Academy of Natural Sciences, too.
Yes, you don't want to forget that, because this weekend is actually the closing of the Extreme Bugs exhibit.
I
Not
love
a big
that
fan
one.
of bugs, but
You see the big praying mantis outside?
yes,
It's cool.
It's very cool, even if you're not so much of a fan of bugs.
What's that on your... right next door is the Franklin Institute.
Yes, and they had a free admission beforehand. They're actually extending their free admission for government workers with a valid ID until the government shutdown. Government reopens.
Reopens soon, hopefully.
Yes.
Morris Arboretum, I know it's cold. You can go inside, though.
I was just there. It was beautiful. And there's so much to see outside, too. You would be so surprised to know how many blooms and annuals are able to survive and emerge within the freezing cold temperatures. But yes, you can go with your family.
The Penn Museum.
Yes.
What's that?
The Penn Museum
Where's
is, well, with 5.
Where's the Penn Museum?
It's at Penn.
Oh, it's at Penn? Well, what do I say? I've never. I got to go there. It's by Huff, right? What am I going to see there?
Well, you can take 5 family members, and you can go visit the mummies and other cultural exhibitions throughout the ages. I highly recommend it.
You
It's a
really
great
like that
exhibit.
place, huh?
Oh, no, it's so much fun.
Can we go together?
Oh, yeah, sometimes.
Seaport Museum.
Yes, so the Independence Seaport Museum, this might be especially interesting for those in the Coast Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard.
Yeah.
But free admission, again, take 3 people and enjoy the maritime exhibit.
I got to tell you, nicely done. Your family and friends watching?
Yes.
People over at Philly Weekly watching?
Yes, certainly.
Give this woman a raise. That was fantastic. Her first time. Alex?
Again, that was Philadelphia Weekly writer Andrea Cantor with her list of furlough freebies for families and individuals impacted by the partial government shutdown, some of the local institutions that are waiving admission and making other types of accommodations for government workers and their families. I have one more thing to bring you. This was President Trump spoke earlier this morning. I meant to look up exactly where this event was. I believe it was at the Pentagon. It was a missile defense review announcement. The president, I know he acknowledges the loss of soldiers and civilians in Syria yesterday, as well as talks a little bit about the shutdown. Let's listen in to the president's remarks again. This was earlier this morning at the Pentagon.
And I hate to tell the rest of the world, but I'm about to do it 3 times. So that's the only reason you gave me such a nice welcome. Thank you very much. And thank you to Vice President Pence for that wonderful introduction. It's an honor to be at the Pentagon with so many distinguished military leaders, and I especially want to recognize our acting Defense Secretary, Patrick Shanahan. He's been fantastic wherever you may be, Patrick. Thank you. Thank you. We were talking just as I came on. I said, Pat, I have to go now. We're talking defense, and we're also talking offense. You know, we can't forget offense either, can we? We have the finest weapons in the world, and we're ordering the finest weapons in the world that you can be sure of. We're here to present the results of my administration's missile defense review. Our goal is simple: to ensure that we can detect and destroy any missile launched against the United States anywhere, anytime, any place. As we all know, the best way to keep America safe is to keep America strong, and that's what we're doing, stronger than ever. Joining us for today's presentation are great champions of missile defense in Congress, Senator Dan Sullivan, my friend. Thank you, Dan, very much. And Representative Mike Turner. Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. Also joining us from the Department of Defense are Acting Deputy Secretary of Defense David Norquist. David, thank you. Secretary Mark Esper. Secretary Heather Wilson. Thank you. Undersecretaries of Defense Michael Griffin, Ellen Lord, and John Root. General Paul Selva, thank you. Thank you, General. General Mark Milley, thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you. And congratulations. Very importantly, congratulations. General Joseph Lengyel and General James McConville. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Before presenting the results of our missile defense review, I want to take a moment to express my deepest condolences to the families of the brave American heroes who laid down their lives yesterday in selfless service to our nation. These are great people, great, great people. We will never forget their noble and immortal sacrifice. This morning, I also would like to briefly address another matter of critical national security, the humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. Without a strong border, America is defenseless, vulnerable, and unprotected. I also want to thank the military for helping us out during the big caravan period, but now you have more caravans forming, and they're on the way up, thousands and thousands of people. We don't know where they're from, who they are, nothing. We need strong borders. We need strong barriers and walls. Nothing else is going to work. Everyone knows it. Everybody's saying it now. It's just a question of time. This should have been done many years ago. It should have been done by other presidents. And it wasn't. Just like many of the other things we're doing that could have been done many years ago, whether it's our negotiations with North Korea, moving the embassy to Jerusalem. So many things were supposed to have been done many years ago, and they weren't, but we're doing them. A wall has to be built. We need security at our southern border. Drugs flow in. Tremendous percentages of the drugs coming into our country come from the southern border. We're not going to allow it to happen. And that is why our Homeland Security professionals have asked Congress for a steel barrier between the ports of entry to fund more agents, beds, medical supplies, and technology, and to close the ridiculous and dangerous immigration loopholes that no country in the world has but us. The federal government remains shut down because congressional Democrats refuse to approve border security. We're going to have border security. It's going to be tight. It's going to be strong. We're going to let people into our country gladly, but they're going to come in legally. That includes for the farmers who need help and for others. But we are going to have powerful, strong border security. While many Democrats in the House and Senate would like to make a deal, Speaker Pelosi will not let them negotiate. The party has been hijacked by the open borders fringe within the party, the radical left becoming the radical Democrats. Hopefully, Democrat lawmakers will step forward to do what is right for our country. And what's right for our country is border security at the strongest level. Stop human hijacking. Stop drugs. Stop gangs. Stop criminals. That's what we're going to do. That was my pledge, and that's what we're going to do. We're gathered together to outline the steps that we must take to upgrade and modernize America's missile defense. So important. In a time of rapidly evolving threats, we must be certain that our defensive capabilities are unrivaled and unmatched anywhere in the world. All over, foreign adversaries, competitors, and rogue regimes are steadily enhancing their missile arsenals all over. Their arsenals are getting bigger and stronger, and we're getting bigger and stronger in every way. They're increasing their lethal strike capabilities, and they're focused on developing long-range missiles that could reach targets within the United States. As president, my first duty is the defense of our country. First duty, the defense of our country. And defense has many different definitions and covers a lot of territory. I will accept nothing less for our nation than the most effective, cutting-edge missile defense systems. We have the best anywhere in the world. It's not even close. Our new strategy calls for 6 major changes in missile defense policy. First, we will prioritize the defense of the American people above all else. Our review calls for 20 new ground-based interceptors at Fort Greely, Alaska, and new radars and sensors to immediately detect foreign missiles launched against our great nation. We are committed to establishing a missile defense program that can shield every city in the United States, and we will never negotiate away our right to do this. Second, we will focus on developing new technology, not just investing more money into existing systems. The world is changing, and we're going to change much faster than the rest of the world. This past Tuesday, the Iranian regime tested a space launch vehicle which failed that will provide Iran with critical information, if it didn't fail, that they could use to pursue intercontinental ballistic missile capability and a capability, actually, of reaching the United States. We're not going to have that happen. The United States cannot simply build more of the same or make only incremental improvements. What we've done to Iran since I've become president is rather miraculous. I ended the horrible, weak Iran nuclear deal, and I will tell you, Iran is a much different country today than it was 2 years ago. It's not the same, and it won't be the same. And I do believe they want to talk. It is not enough to merely keep pace with our adversaries. We must outpace them at every single turn. We must pursue the advanced technology and research to guarantee that the United States is always several steps ahead of those who would do us harm. Third, we will protect the American people from all types of missile attacks. In the past, the United States lacked a comprehensive strategy for missile defense that extended beyond ballistic missiles. Under our plan, that will change. The U.S. will now adjust its posture to also defend against any missile strikes, including cruise and hypersonic missiles. And we are, by the way, very advanced also on hypersonic technology and missiles. We will always be at the forefront of everything. Fourth, we will recognize that space is a new warfighting domain, with the Space Force leading the way. My upcoming budget will invest in a space-based missile defense layer. It's new technology. It's ultimately going to be a very, very big part of our defense and obviously of our offense. The system will be monitored, and we will terminate any missile launches from hostile powers or even from powers that make a mistake. It won't happen, regardless of the missile type or geographic origins of the attack. We will ensure that enemy missiles find no sanctuary on Earth or in the skies above. This is the direction that I'm heading. We have some very bad players out there, and we're a good player, but we can be far worse than anybody if need be. I've always known, and I've watched and I've seen, the stronger you are, the less you will need whatever that strength may be. Fifth, we will remove bureaucratic obstacles to dramatically speed up the acquisition and deployment of the new technology. And sixth, we will insist on fair burden sharing with our allies. I've made it clear we are protecting many, many wealthy countries. One country, they said, has an unsustainable cash flow. In other words, they make so much money they don't know what to do with it. I said, send it our way. We're protecting you. Send it our way. We protect all of these wealthy countries, which I'm very honored to do. But many of them are so wealthy they can easily pay us the cost of this protection. So you'll see big changes taking place. And we've had great talks with countries, friendly talks. One of them said, Mr. President, yes, we will work with you. But for 30 years, nobody's ever asked. I said, now we're asking. Took a long time. I said, now we're asking. And that allows us to spend much more money than these incredible budgets where it's just money going out and not coming back. So wealthy countries that we're protecting are all under notice and all cooperating very nicely. I would say they probably liked other presidents more than me, but that's okay. I don't blame them. I would too. There was a recent poll in Europe. The original poll, when I first ran, I was one of the most popular people in the world. And now they said he's not popular in Europe. I shouldn't be, because I'm asking them to step up. You have countries paying less than 1% in NATO. Last year, I raised $44 billion more by saying, I'm sorry, you have to step up. The year before that, my first year, so I was just getting started, I raised $24 billion with one meeting. And until that, it was just going down. It was going down. For 15 years, it was just going down. The numbers going into NATO. And this year will also have a good year. They're starting to step up. Very unfair when Germany pays 1% and we're paying 4.3% of a much larger GDP. We cannot be the fools for others. We cannot be. We don't want to be called that. And I will tell you, for many years, behind your backs, that's what they were saying. So there's a big difference. We're going to be with NATO 100%, but as I told the countries, you have to step up. You have to pay minimum numbers, actually. The numbers should be much higher. They set a 2% goal. Very few pay that, but they should be much higher than that. If you look at what we pay, it's massively higher than that. So we have very good relationships, but countries are now stepping up, and they can well afford to. In furtherance of this goal, our plan directs the Department of Defense to prioritize the sale of American missile defense and technology to our allies and to our partners. We want them to be able to defend. And they're willing to pay for the finest missiles in the world. They've already done that. They're stepping up like nobody's ever seen before, actually. We will also leverage our network of partnerships to share early warning and tracking information and detect missile launches as early as possible. Today marks the beginning of a new era in our missile defense program. For too long, we have been held back by self-imposed limits while foreign competitors grow and they advance more than we have over the years. Part of the reason is we spend so much money on so many other places. Now that's changing. We're helping, and we're able to spend money on technology and new defense and far beyond defense systems. So those days are history. Our strategy is grounded in one overriding objective: to detect and destroy every type of missile attack against any American target, whether before or after launch. When it comes to defending America, we will not take any chances. We will only take action. There is no substitute for American military might. But when I took office, you know it better than anybody in the world, our military was very tired. It was very depleted. I won't even tell you the things that some of our great generals were telling me. And now it's being rebuilt at a rapid rate, and very shortly will be more powerful than ever before. And that's the way it has to be. And as I said, the more powerful it is, the less likely it is that we'll ever have to use it. But it will soon be more powerful than ever before. Today, we reaffirm that A strong America remains the best way to prevent conflict, promote peace, preserve freedom, and protect our great people. Together, we unite behind a noble mission to shield our country with the greatest missile defense systems anywhere on the face of the earth. I want to thank you again to the men and women of the American Armed Forces, special people. And the citizens of our country know that and acknowledge that, far more so than you would ever know. We have the greatest military at any time soon in the history of the world. I want to just finish by saying I appreciate your service. You're incredible people. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Again, that was President Trump speaking at a missile defense review announcement at the Pentagon earlier today. That does it for us here at Fox 29 News Now. Thank you very much for joining us. And remember, we'll have the latest on the two storms headed our way, one tonight, overnight, and one over the weekend. Thanks again to Fox 29 Weather Authority Sue Serio joining us earlier today to talk about the weather and the wintry double whammy we're facing. We've got the full video of that up on our YouTube page now, as well as the news conference for the violence reduction and prevention plan that the city announced today. So thanks again for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you Friday after Good Day on Fox 29 News Now.